The story opens with a high-voltage box covered in warning signs, and our boy is standing there holding live wires like a complete maniac. Two goons grab him from behind and he instantly runs the math that getting captured here means it's completely over. So instead of folding, this absolute menace touches the cables together and fries all three of them with a single massive short circuit. He takes the hit himself just to avoid being taken back, and as the smoke clears, he gets right back up because inside his chest beats a resurrection heart. And dying is literally not an option for this guy. This is the story of Joo Kim, and his heart is not normal. In this world, a rare mutation causes certain people to grow bizarre hearts with unique powers. These people are called heart mutants, and everyone acts like it's some divine blessing. Joo hears that and wants to laugh because right now he is digging through a trash can, starving and completely on the run. His power didn't give him a good life. It gave him a decade of lab experiments and a skeleton body that terrifies everyone he meets. But today's lucky find is a half-eaten piece of bread he finds in that trash can. He eats it like it's a 5-star meal with zero regrets. Just then, a stray dog walks up sniffing, and Joo, being the actual softie he is, breaks off a piece and shares it. The dog licks his bony hand. You can call it a sweet moment until an entire pack of strays appears out of nowhere, and our boy is suddenly in hot water. Well, he hides behind a wall thinking it's the lab hunters. But nope, these are just 3 local bullies cornering a busty baddie. Joo spots the bag of pet food in her hands and immediately understands what she was doing there. And even in his completely destroyed state, this guy walks straight up to the group and tells them to stop. The bullies turn around in confusion, and when they spot Joo's skeleton face up close, they completely lose their minds, screaming about ghosts. He shows his bone blade and warns them to leave before he makes things worse. They sprint away as their lives depend on it. The girl is still on the ground shaking, trying to stutter out a thank you, when Joo points at her with his skeletal finger and she absolutely panics. But he is not threatening her. He just picks up her dropped bag of pet food, takes one small bite, and politely asks if he can have some. Seeing this, the girl screams and bolts. He watches her go with zero surprise, sits down with the dogs, and starts eating the pet food in peace. But the girl didn't go far. She's hiding nearby, watching him, and slowly puts it together that a heart mutant saved her from danger. She instantly feels guilty and walks back over to him. She pulls out a sandwich from her bag and offers it to him. Joo stares at it like she just handed him a national treasure, because he has only ever seen sandwich wrappers in the trash before this moment. He takes one bite and his entire system crashes from how good it tastes. She introduces herself as Hyeji, while our guy introduces himself as Joo Kim formally, like a gentleman with no skin. She asks how he ended up like this, and he tells her the truth. He is on the run from a research center that captures mutants and has been chasing him ever since he escaped. Hyeji has heard the rumors and asks what they actually did to him there. Joo pauses, then tells her the truth. 10 years of experiments and procedures, all because his resurrected heart kept healing him no matter what they put him through, making him the perfect test subject that the lab simply could not afford to let go. Hyeji listens to all of it, stands up, and grabs his hand. She's taking him somewhere, and our single-ass guy is so shocked by the contact that his bone blade pops out involuntarily. And then, halfway down the street, his entire arm detaches and she's just standing there holding a disconnected skeletal limb. She panics, but he tells her this happens sometimes. He just lines it back up and it reattaches like nothing. She takes him to get a proper disguise, buying him new clothes and a wig out of her own pocket without being asked. Jimo puts everything on and genuinely loves every single piece of it on his skinny-ass body. He is blushing with excitement until she tells him the transformation is not complete yet, because his face is still fully visible. She sits him down and covers everything with makeup, adding glasses to finish the job. The result is horrible because bro turns out to look like the ultimate Joker of the year. She steps back and instantly feels ashamed by how stupid it turned out. Then her phone rings and she realizes she is late for class. She tells him to watch the street dogs and runs off just like that. Yujui stands there with the pack surrounding him, turning her name over in his head. He thinks about the lab where everyone treated him like an experiment, and on the streets everyone ran from him in fear. But this girl held his hand, bought him clothes, and talked to him like a normal person, and that is something he has not experienced in a very long time. He lies down with the dogs and thanks the little one that led him to meet her, then asks what he should call it. The dog licks his face and Jua decides on the name Potato. The dog barks happily as if it fully approves. He thinks about seeing her again tomorrow and for one brief moment actually lets himself look forward to something. Then reality kicks in hard. He's being actively hunted and his presence puts her in real danger. With a heavy heart, he gets up, pulls his hood on, and walks away alone into the dark city streets. After walking for a long time, he finds a sewer entrance near a river and slips inside to hide from everyone. He passes out on the dirty ground from pure exhaustion and wakes up holding a rat by the tail. He gets up, reminds himself he cannot just sleep anywhere, and immediately feels his stomach roaring at him. He pulls out the pet food he saved before leaving and starts eating each piece while imagining it as part of that sandwich. He uses the memory to trick his body into feeling satisfied. It was actually working surprisingly well until Potato launched himself out of nowhere, stole the food directly from his hand, and sat there looking completely unbothered. Jai-sam-o scolds him, but before he can even process how the dog found such a remote hiding spot, his Sham's voice echoes through the sewer. She followed the dog's scent all the way here, and she is not happy about having had to do that. She appears with an angry look and asks why he disappeared without a single word. Jitsuo apologizes and admits he was afraid to cause trouble for her. She smiles and says she is just glad she found him, then dumps an entire pile of snacks onto the ground because apparently one sandwich yesterday does not count as feeding a person. She mixes cookies into milk and slides it over. Joao has never had this before in his life. He tries one spoonful and starts crying. The dessert broke him and our boy is completely smitten with it. Dinner boy drinking soda, his arm starts rapidly regenerating. Haiji watches the bone reform in real time and asks if healing is always this slow. Joao tells her that at this rate a full recovery would take years. He casually mentions there is a faster method in the lab but changes the subject immediately before she can ask what it is. He reveals that they needed him alive to run their experiments and that's why they are still searching for him. Hearing this, she figures out that he ran to protect her from the lab and replies yes. She stands up and says they are going to the police. Jujo shuts it down immediately, knowing how they will instantly shoot a monster like him, but she smiles and drops a secret that her older sister is a police officer. And not just that, her sister is also a heart mutant. Jizo goes completely silent because that was not on his bingo card. He is still processing when Haiji says her goodbyes to the dogs and heads home, leaving him alone with Potato. He looks at the little dog and makes a decision. He is not running this time. For the first time in 3 years, someone reached out to help him, and he is not going to throw that away. He puts on his hood and starts walking, and then headlights slam into him from nowhere. A car hits him at full speed and sends his body flying. His glasses come off mid-air before he crashes onto the road. Heiji tries to warn him, but she gets grabbed from behind, and from the shadows, a scarred man lights a cigarette and says he finally found that pathetic piece of scrap. He orders his underlings to take him with them. They tie him with ropes and start dragging him behind the moving vehicle along the asphalt. His hands get destroyed against the road as he fights to stop the car. He blames himself completely, as she got pulled into this because of him. He tries to fight back, but it is not enough because his useless skill can't do anything. He starts to lose hope when the street dogs arrive like real gangstas. Potato leads the charge and starts biting through the rope while the whole pack pulls against the car with everything they have. The rope breaks and Jewel hits the ground free, surrounded by barking dogs protecting his broken body. The kidnappers step out of the car with baseball bats and these clowns have zero hesitation about using them on animals. Gio watches his friends getting hurt fighting for him, and forces himself up. He cannot let them do this alone. He clenches his fist and remembers the blood scattered across the asphalt and starts dragging himself toward the nearest puddle, knowing it can accelerate his healing. But before he reaches it, he looks to his side and sees Potato lying motionless on the ground. Then he turns around and sees the rest of the pack scattered across the asphalt, all of them still and gone. These were the same animals that bit through a rope and pulled him free just minutes ago. He calls their names and gets nothing back. Something inside his chest begins to pulse. 10 years of memories start flooding in at once. The laboratory, the chains, and the red substance they fed him every morning so his body would be strong enough to survive whatever they did to him next. The endless cycle of being broken and healed with no escape and no end in sight because his own heart simply refused to let him die. He finally escaped, thinking the nightmare was over. Instead, the outside world looked at him like he was a walking biohazard. People crossed the street, kids cried, and he ended up eating out of trash cans like a discount raccoon. Then a girl shared her sandwich with him and a small dog licked his hand. Those were the only moments in years that made him feel like a person. That memory is what finally flips the switch. Every drop of blood on the ground starts moving at once and rushing toward him. It wraps around his body and the regeneration that usually crawls along like a hungover snail suddenly goes full turbo mode. His muscles rebuild, skin stitches over bones, and his face snaps back into place. Our boy stands up looking properly human for the first time in forever. He barely pauses to process the fact that he just got a full heal from dog blood. The henchman who steps toward him first gets launched into the side of a car with a single punch and the door caves in around the guy like cheap aluminum foil. Gio walks past him without slowing down, crouches on the ground and carefully picks up Potato's body. He holds it for a moment, completely still. Then he looks up at the men still standing and tells them he knows the most painful way for a person to go, and he leaves the one alive who will tell him where Heiji is. The scene shifts to an isolated warehouse in the middle of nowhere that screams secret base. Several black cars are parked outside and armed goons are posted at every corner. Inside, someone yanks a dark bag off the hostage's head, and Heiji opens her eyes into the ugly light. Our 1110 baddie desperately asks who these people even are and why they dragged her out to this hideout. She spots human corpses scattered around the room, and it leaves her in total shock. No one of the men grabs her hair and asks if she has extra lives to be screaming like that. He shows her a photo of the skeleton and makes it crystal clear that she is only here because she helped that mutant. He warns her to stay silent if she doesn't want to disappear. Just then the leader's phone rings and the henchman on the other end starts rambling about dogs, then drops the bomb that the bone monster turned back into a human and that the animals were responsible. The boss completely loses and asks for clarity. Hayeji overhears everything while quietly hoping those little dogs actually came through for her friend. The boss asks if they seriously lost the skeleton and erupts, screaming about how valuable the target was and calling his man useless garbage. He turns back to Haiji and asks her to tell him everything right now because the escape just cost him a lot of money. She tells him she knows nothing, so he pulls out a blade and suggests roughing her up might help her memory along. Haiji thinks back to how her friend warned her about being followed and she brushed it off completely, and that regret hits very differently with a blade near your face. Just as things are about to go very bad, one of the henchmen suddenly gets launched into another and both hit the ground like dead maggots. Our boy is standing at the entrance in full human form, radiating a dark aura of pure vengeance like a Sigma who just hit an infinite power glitch. One goon steps forward and calls him a beggar because of his torn, dirty clothes, which is genuinely the worst rate of his situation. Our Chad grabs that man by the neck with absurd speed and starts squeezing, and the guy struggles to breathe, wondering what kind of strength this is. With a completely cold stare, our boy tells them that the little dogs are all gone because of what they did tonight. The leader shouts for his men to handle it, and two rush forward, one landing a punch directly into our guy's face. But he does not flinch and responds with a hit so devastating, the attacker goes flying across the room. Then another grabs him from behind while a third yanks his hair. His eyes glow intense red through the pain, and he throws one of them over his shoulder with a force that shocks everyone watching. Then he asks them if they were sent by Hermes' research lab. Heiji stares in disbelief as she realizes this is Gio with an actual face now. The boss figures it out too and shouts that the skeleton turned into a person, remembering the warning that he might not recognize him after a full regeneration. He immediately pulls a weapon and fires into our boy's chest, thanks him sarcastically for coming back on his own, and orders every man to open fire without stopping until he cannot regenerate anymore. The shots come from all directions, and the boss screams to keep firing. Blood is running down our guy's face and soaking his already destroyed clothes. Haiji screams for them to stop and nobody listens. Eventually his body drops and the henchmen celebrate like they actually won something. Then his hand twitches and the blood pooling around him starts flowing back into his body. The blood from the fallen henchman nearby slides across the floor toward him too, and his heart of resurrection is pulsing with a terrifying amount of energy. One of the goons notices and completely loses his mind, screaming that the target is coming back to life, and the boss watches our guy rise from the floor and compares it to a zombie stand-up. The leader orders to start another round of fire, and Juo is feeling every single bullet that is tearing through his skin, but the pain registers differently now. Our Sigma has been through far worse in that lab as a child, crushed by presses, subjected to endless inhumane experiments, and compared to all of that, bullets are just an inconvenience for him. He lands a devastating punch on the nearest goon that sends the man crashing into a metal tank hard enough to dent it, then unleashes his full fury across the warehouse at a speed nobody in the room can track. What really drives him is the memory of the little dogs who sacrificed themselves to protect him, the image of Potato smiling and the weight of not being able to keep his only friend safe. He keeps moving at the speed of a thrifted flash and smashes the goons in all directions. Then as usual, the boss grabs Heiji and tries to flee, threatening to shoot her if our boy takes one more step. Our Chad ignores this completely and delivers a punch so precise and brutal into the kidnapper's face that the villain crashes into a metal tank and lands on the dirty floor completely destroyed. He looks up at our guy with genuine terror and starts begging, promising anything. Our boy stares down with empty eyes and says it is far too late for forgiveness, then delivers a sequence of rapid blows so fast the man cannot even raise his arms. When it is over, the entire warehouse is in chaos. Every henchman is down, and our boy finally takes a breath and lets it end. Hochi calls his name with a shaky voice and he walks toward her slowly, barefoot on the dirty floor, then drops to his knees and pulls her into a tight hug. With tears in his eyes, he tells her how scared he was that she might get caught in everything. He confesses that the dogs are gone and they gave their lives for him. He thanks her for being alive and she hugs him back and says she is just happy he is alive. But back at the scene, a detective is screaming at his officers to move faster and get the suspects into custody. The officers cuff one beaten gangster after another while surveying the absolutely ridiculous scale of the damage around them. One of them scratches his head and calls it a violent incident caused by internal gang divisions, trying to make sense of how so many people ended up unconscious from fighting each other. From the tree line, Haiji watches the whole operation and feels relieved that all the gangsters are being rounded up without complications. Our boy is standing next to her looking slightly less relaxed and asks if they really do not need to be investigated or anything. She reminds him of what her sister told them earlier, that things get complicated the moment a heart mutant gets officially involved in a police case. She suggests they should go for now since her sister said she would handle it. They walk away from the scene and the moment they see dead dogs in front of them, Heiji breaks down crying. Our boy collapses right alongside her, both of them sitting on the ground unable to hold it together anymore. Jui looks down at them and his voice cracks as he apologizes. Haijui wipes her face and holds one of them close and tells them it is her fault, that the poor things followed her specifically because they wanted to save her. She feels guilty as she admits that she could not even take proper responsibility for them. She only kept them warm for a little while and fed them for a little while, and they ran into danger for her without thinking twice about it. He then bites his own finger and lets his blood drip onto the animals, desperately hoping his mutant nature can wake them up. He bites harder as the blood flows, completely ignoring the pain as if it is a minor inconvenience. Haiji grabs his arm and begs him to stop because the little dogs would be even sadder seeing him hurt himself than about anything else. With a heavy face, he asks if they hate him for what happened, but she holds his hand and explains what she actually knows about those animals, then tells him they were deeply traumatized before he ever met them. When he asks, she replies that the dogs were scarred from years of mistreatment and distrustful of almost everyone. With our guy, it was completely different from the very first day, and he sits there genuinely stunned because he had absolutely no idea. She tells him not to blame himself because doing that would break their hearts too, and he sits quietly with one of the animals in his lap. Then she adds that the fact that those dogs approached him without hesitation probably means they sensed he was carrying the same wounds they were. He thanks her for her words, and they both fall quiet for a moment. Then a soft whimper breaks the silence. They look over and Potato's puppy steps out into the clearing, walking slowly toward them like he has been looking for this exact spot the whole time. The tiny dog stops right in front of our boy, wags his tail, and just stares up at him. Our guy asks quietly if the little one hates him too. The puppy licks his hand, which in dog language means they are completely fine and to stop worrying. His friend says it looks like this one really likes him too. Shortly after, the puppy falls asleep in his arms, and after a quick call to her sister to sort out next steps, the three of them walk through the city together, our boy holding the sleeping puppy like it is the most precious thing he has ever been trusted with. They arrive at a large apartment building, and she tells him to come in and make himself completely at home. Our Sigma hesitates at the doorway, genuinely uncertain whether someone as dangerous as him belongs in a normal house. She smiles and reminds him that he risked his life to protect her tonight, so the idea of him threatening her living room is not something she is worried about. She also mentions her sister wants to meet him about the lab case, and that seals it. He steps inside, then he catches his own reflection in a window and completely freezes. He stares at the image like his brain cannot load the result, then grabs her by the shoulders and yells that his face is back, cheeks, and a nose and actual lips, all of it. He explains that his face had not regenerated since his childhood in the lab, and he genuinely did not know what he looked like until this exact moment. Standing there with his hands pressed against the glass, he sees his own face for the very first time. She takes a long sip of water to process all of this and then asks how old he actually is, because now that he is fully regenerated, he looks nothing like she expected. Our boy does the math out loud, entering the lab at 7, escaping 3 years after 7 annual tests, which makes him 17. She spits her water out immediately and asks why he let her call him sir if they are literally the same age. He blushes and quietly explains that he was just happy someone was treating him like a human being at all. And that answer is so sincere and sad that she goes completely speechless. She suggests they use each other's names from now on, invites him to eat after a shower, and while all of that gets sorted out, the puppy absolutely destroys his food bowl with zero table manners. At the dinner table, our guy sits in clean clothes in front of his first real meal, takes one bite, and shouts that everything is warm and delicious like he just discovered fire. She gets embarrassed and says it is just a simple dish, but he insists with complete sincerity that this is the best food he has ever tasted in his entire life. The plates end up completely empty. She points him toward the couch with a blanket, mentions her sister had something come up and will be back late, then heads to her room to do homework. The door closes and our boy is alone in the living room for the first time, just standing there absorbing the reality of his surroundings. His eyes trace every detail slowly, the flowers in a vase, the warmth of the walls, all the quiet life that the cold laboratory never had. He stares at the television completely baffled by how something that large can possibly be that thin, then lies down on the couch and is genuinely surprised by how soft it is compared to whatever he was sleeping on in the lab, which based on everything we know was definitely not a couch. Then the puppy drinks some water and immediately throws it back up, shattering the atmosphere completely. Our boy sits up panicked, watches the little animal look weak, and yells his name with the full emotional force of someone watching the last good thing in his life collapse. He rushes over desperate, and then the puppy tilts his head to the side with a perfectly fine expression because it was a false alarm and dogs just do that sometimes. Our guy exhales like he just survived a second warehouse. The two of them end up on the couch together with the puppy snuggled against his shoulder, and our boy asks his new companion quietly if he is enjoying their new safe home. He lands on the name Fritter because the father was Potato, and the logic is completely airtight. The puppy wags his tail in full approval. For the first time in life, our guy genuinely understands what warmth feels like, and he falls asleep to flashes of the day, the warm meal, the hot shower he took for the first time in years, the impossibly soft couch, all of it adding up to something he has never had before and is already terrified of losing. The nightmare finds him anyway. He relives the escape from the laboratory, the desperate sprint through corridors, other mutants running beside him toward an exit that kept feeling impossibly far, guards appearing and refusing to let them go. An explosion rocks the hallway and two companions get thrown by the blast. A soldier raises an energy weapon to fire. A girl with black hair deflects the shot with ice powers and turns it back on the guards. Another boy holds the cracking floor together while screaming at everyone to keep moving, and the girl extends her hand and yells for our boy to hurry because the exit is right there. He takes her hand and they run, but his companions get separated and he never finds them again. He wakes up with the nightmare still heavy on his chest, thinks about where those friends are right now, and makes a quiet promise that he will not let anyone take away the small piece of peace he has finally found. Anyone who tries is going to deeply regret it. The next morning, a desperate scream tears through the neighborhood. Our boy is sprinting through the streets with tears streaming down his face, screaming Fritter's name, and from the outside this looks exactly as unhinged as it sounds. A few hours earlier, Hayase left for school and asked him to watch the house. Just then, Fritter started scratching the wall because he was bored and needed to go outside. Our guy decided a walk was perfectly manageable. Hayase left the house and Juo also went for a walk after putting the leash on Fritter. The leash made the puppy whimper, and our boy got hit with a flashback he did not ask for. He remembers his own time in chains in the lab, and because of that he let go of the leash and apologized to Fritter, who disappeared from sight at a speed suggesting he had been waiting for exactly this his entire life. So now our guy is running through the streets, digging through trash cans and checking every dark corner. He sits on the pavement at one point and just cries, because he made a promise to protect this animal less than 24 hours ago and already failed. He imagines all the worst-case scenarios that can happen to Fritter. Then he spots the school building in the distance and near the bushes by the field. The tiny dog is calmly licking his paw with zero awareness of the chaos he caused. Our boy sprints toward him at full speed, blowing past a man on the sidewalk so fast the guy grabs for him and misses entirely, then just stands there wondering how a human being moved that fast. Fritter had apparently followed Hayate's scent straight to her school and ended up charming a group of students filming a dance video, who immediately picked him up and started taking photos because he was small and adorable. The girls were deep in complimenting each other on the footage when they spotted a dark figure standing behind them in the photo and screamed loud enough to clear a courtyard, immediately accusing our boy of being a creep filming them from behind a tree. He steps out deeply embarrassed and explains he was just looking for his dog, and the whole vibe shifts the moment they actually look at him and realize the puppy's owner is genuinely very handsome. They assume he is a new student, and the leader extends her phone asking for his social media so she can tag him, with the full confidence of someone for whom this has never not worked. Her friends whisper that this is the first time they have ever seen her ask a guy for contact information. Our guy stares at the phone and confesses that he does not have any social media at all, and the girl freezes like the sentence did not fully load. Her friends go silent. The most popular girl in school just got turned down by someone who does not even have an account, which is incomprehensible on a fundamental level. Our boy bows politely, thanks her for the invitation, apologizes for the trouble, takes Fritter back, and walks away. She watches him go with fury, convinced he is playing hard to get because the alternative simply does not make sense. Neither of them notices the red-haired guy watching from across the courtyard with his jaw tight and something genuinely dangerous building behind his eyes. His crew stands beside him and asks quietly whether that is not his girlfriend over there with the new guy, and he confirms it with a stare that answers the question. Our boy keeps petting Fritter and walking away completely unbothered, with no idea that someone across the yard has already decided this is very personal. The bully winds up and launches the ball at full force, not caring about anything or anyone nearby. The thing deforms from the sheer power of the kick and flies straight toward our boy, who is standing there holding Fritter. Instead of dodging, he stops it with his face, stares back at the guy, and does not move an inch. The girls watching go completely speechless, and the puppy is perfectly fine in his arms, which is apparently the only thing our Chad cares about here. Blood starts dripping down his face, and a student rushes over asking if he is okay. The bully immediately switches to damage control mode and suggests our boy be more careful next time. Our guy looks at him calmly and says the puppy almost got hurt and he wants a proper apology. The bully nearly clowns on him right there in front of everyone, then remembers his girlfriend is watching and suddenly becomes a completely different person, suggesting the nurse. Our boy accepts, says everything is fine, and walks off, leaving the bully standing there. The moment our guy is out of sight, the fake smile drops and the bully tells his crew to find out who the new kid is, because he has developed a deep personal hatred for him in the span of about 4 minutes. Meanwhile, our guy is walking home thinking about how wild it was to see a real school up close, watching people his age just having fun, quietly wondering if he would have made friends somewhere like that. Just then, Taegu jogs up behind him, throws an arm around his shoulder and apologizes for the whole ball situation like they are old friends. They are in the same grade, so basically brothers now. He offers to buy a snack as part of the apology, and our boy has no idea what kind, but the moment Taegu says the word bread, something activates behind his eyes. He asks if he is being serious. Taegu says he knows a place with incredible bread nearby. Our Sigma is already moving before the sentence finishes. It is obviously a trap. Taegu trips him halfway there and our boy hits the ground while the bullies surround them, laughing about how easily he fell for a story about bread. 10 years of lab experiments and one mention of carbs finally got him. They call him a pathetic loser and mock him for acting like a paid Avenger. Juo stares back at Taegu with completely flat eyes and asks what he is even talking about. Taegu's face twists and he screams about Juo disrespecting his girlfriend Myung, saying a guy like him would be crying on the floor after one punch, and asking what the fake tough act is about. The gang laughs along, mocking his small frame and the puppy tucked under his arm, and our boy just puts his face in his hand and sighs. He genuinely thought Taegu called him out to be friends. He turns to leave, tells them he is sorry for making them uncomfortable, and starts walking. Just then, a bully named Jo Yoon steps directly into his path with a shark-like grin and asks where he is going. Juo's eyes sharpen and he tells him calmly to move because Freya is getting scared. The bullies laugh even harder while Juo lunges forward, saying that the mutt takes after his owner. However, Juwo's arm moves before anyone can see it, and Juwo hits the asphalt like a dropped bag of flour. The whole crew goes dead silent. Tabu's pupils shrink to pinpoints as he tries to process the speed, unable to fully accept that he just saw his boy flying from a single swing. The rest of the gang snaps out of it and starts screaming, asking what Juwo just did and how Juwo ended up on the ground. Juwo stands there silently with Fry held tight against his chest. On his resurrection heart pulses and our Chad moves through the whole group with a speed and precision that makes no sense for someone who just took a football to the face. He drops them one by one and closes the whole thing by throwing the leader over his shoulder and slamming him into a brick wall hard enough to crack it, then calmly explains he was asking them to stop because Fritter was getting scared. The students watching from a distance scream that he is a monster and scatter. The leader is on the ground staring at the cracked wall doing the math on what that punch would have done to his skull, then immediately starts bowing and begging for forgiveness while pulling up a photo of his own dog to prove he loves animals. Our boy considers this, but his stomach growls. Tago interprets the stomach rumble correctly and takes him to the school convenience store where the table gets completely loaded with food and our guy destroys all of it without hesitation. Taigu sits across watching this scene completely unable to figure out what he is looking at, because this guy cracked a wall with someone's skull 20 minutes ago and is now feeding a puppy pastry. He notices our boy's hand is completely healed with no trace of the damage from punching concrete. He does some math and wonders if he is a mutant. He pulls out his phone and calls his boss Young Chul, who picks up from an underground casino with maximum irritation and says he only ever hears from Taegu when someone has already beaten him up. Taegu begs for backup and the boss agrees to come mostly because he is bored. Then our boy slides a snack across the table and says he feels bad eating alone. Taegu tells him to keep everything. Juwo shrugs, gives the rest to Fritter, and both of them sit there perfectly happy while Taegu stares at this scene genuinely unable to compute the personality in front of him. He starts connecting the dots and quietly asks if Juwo is a mutant. The puppy chooses this exact moment to throw up everything. Juwo panics, denies everything, and Taegu is now completely sure that he takes out his phone and calls his boss to report the situation. He is worried that our guy will fold his boss too, so he tells Yui Dakenchil to cancel his plan to come. But the boss assures him that they will deal with Juwo, he just needs to keep him busy until they come. Togu needs to stall until the crew arrives, so he suggests skipping class and heading out. Our guy, who has spent the last decade like a lab rat, says yes before the sentence even finishes. They end up at an arcade and our boy walks in like someone just opened a portal to another dimension. Eyes wide, completely overwhelmed by the lights and noise. Taegu watches and realizes this Sigma has genuinely never been anywhere like this before. 10 years in a lab and his first normal teenager experience is a neon arcade with the guy who just tried to have him set up. Iconic. Our boy stops in front of a claw machine and recognizes the character keychain Hayatsi has on her bag. Taegu puts money in without being asked. The claw drops perfectly into the prize shot on the very first attempt, and our guy hugs the purple doll to his chest with a massive smile, saying now he has the same one as Hayatsi. Taegu watches this absolute powerhouse giggle over a stuffed toy and thinks stalling him is going to be no problem at all. They hit a coin karaoke booth next, and Taegu tells him to pick a song. Our boy goes quiet and a little embarrassed, admitting he does not know any songs. Taegu rolls his eyes and says to just sing anything, and the screen lights up with cartoon bears as our guy grips the mic with terrifying sincerity and belts out a nursery rhyme about cotton candy and going to the park with his mom. Taegu stares and asks how long the pure act is going to last, and our guy stops, his expression going quiet. He says it is the only song he knows, because before he was separated from his family at 7, his mother taught it to him, and after that he never lived a normal life, so he never learned anything else. The booth goes very still. Taegu sits there looking at this kid cradling a puppy in a karaoke room, and feels something crack open in his chest. He blinks it away fast, slams money into our boy's hand and tells him that if he cannot live a normal life, then he is going to live an extraordinary one right now. Our guy just looks confused. Taegu grabs him and they go back into the arcade properly, and what follows is complete chaos. They hammer the drum machines together with Taegu screaming at him to hit faster, while our boy attacks the pads like they personally wronged him. They play a fighting game and our Sigma uses his foot to control the joystick, which Taegu calls cheating, and our guy genuinely cannot understand why. Then they hit the dance game and this Chad completely falls apart trying to follow rhythm arrows and eats the floor with Fritter somehow still safe in his arms. Taegu laughs until he cannot breathe. They stumble out into the cool evening air both sweating and breathing hard, and our boy says it was the first time he ever had that much fun. Taegu is mid-sip on his water looking at a strip of photo booth pictures. Then his phone explodes. Young Chul is screaming on the other end so loud the volume distorts, and Taegu looks at the photos, looks at our boy playing with Fritter, and something in him just breaks. Taegu, he shows up at the alley alone and tells the crew to go back because there is no need to fight Juwo anymore. Internally, he thanks Juwo and assures himself that he is doing him just because of his dog because he is also a dog parent. Back in the present, Young Kale punches him hard then pulls his hair and asks about Juwo again. Taegu once again assures him that Juwo is just a normal guy because he didn't feel any weird aura around him. He mentions that our boy is just a normal broke loser who got winded on a rhythm game and is not worth anyone's time. However, Young Chul doesn't buy it. pulls him into a mock hug, lights a cigarette, and says the lie is written all over his face. Then he holds up 5 fingers and offers 5 million to turn the mutant over and walk away clean. Taigu's hand trembles against the cold pavement as the full picture locks in. Because this is not a gang fight, his boss already has a lab buyer lined up, and the news has been full of mutants disappearing for years. The man who pulled him up off the ground as a kid is just a human trafficker in a floral shirt who was always going to end up exactly here. He keeps refusing, and Young Chell runs out of patience fast. A brutal kick sending Taigu into the wall with the air completely gone from his lungs. He starts kicking him endlessly, and through the pain, a memory surfaces of a younger Taigu getting beaten by school bullies. Then a shadow falls over the scene and Younger pulls him up, telling him he was family now. Back then, it seemed like the coolest thing in the world. Right now, he is on the pavement getting stomped by that same man's crew, and the illusion is completely gone. Younger wraps a heavy chain around his fist and offers Taigu money and a life if he just hands over the target. Taigu looks up and says clearly that right now he looks really uncool. His words make Young Cole really angry, and he swings his chain fist down, but a hand catches it in midair. Our boy is standing there holding Fritter in one arm and Young Cole's wrist in the other, completely calm, examining the chain like he is reading a product label. He notes the weld marks and rough edges and says if you beat someone with this, the wounds last a very long time. The whole alley freezes. Tiddick stares up from the ground, wondering how our guy even found this place, and our boy squats down next to him and says he came looking because Tiddick was taking too long and he got worried. Tiddick's stable face beaten to pieces by his own crew, processes the fact that the person he tried to sell to a lab came looking because he was worried, then breaks down completely and confesses everything through the blood. The gang closes in with bats and pipes, and our Chad absorbs the whole thing, then touches the blood pooling on the ground, and the resurrection heart kicks in. What follows is fast and one-sided. He starts beating everyone's ass with bare hands, and every strike is precise and final, bodies dropping one after another while Fritter barks at full volume from the sidelines like he is personally commentating. Young Kel comes in with a knife, stabs once and then twice, screaming that getting stabbed is the same for everyone, and our boy looks down at the blade, grabs it with his bare hand, pulls it out of his own chest. He sets it on the ground and tells him to stop trying to pierce him like that. Then he returns the favor with a kick to the leg, and the boss hits the dirt. Teju calls his name from the pavement after the dust settles and offers to call an ambulance. Our boy pulls his shirt aside to show him where the stab wounds were, and it's nothing. Taigyu feels ashamed for telling the bullies about Juo's mutant heart and starts beating himself. But our guy casually reaches into his pocket and hands him something to wipe the blood off his face. Taigyu looks down and gets shocked because it is a puppy pee pad. Just survived 2 stab wounds, and his first aid kit is dog toilet paper. Taigyu uses it anyway, says he does not deserve to be treated like a real friend, and our boy tells him simply that the fact Taigyu sees it that way means he was never the only one who thought they were friends. Taigyu starts crying in the middle of a destroyed alley surrounded by unconscious gang members, gets up and pulls our boy into a hug. Our guy tells him he is a really cool guy, and they walk out together. Young Kel is on the ground begging now. His pig-sized body is shaking as he pleads for Juo to let him go and swears he will never tell a soul about the mutant thing. Taigyu looks down at this man he spent years idolizing and feels nothing but contempt. He kicks Young Kel's jaw and screams about what kind of man sells people like livestock, while Juo stands back holding Fry against his chest, genuinely confused about whether they were not supposed to be friends. Taigyu keeps going until he turns and asks what they should do with the rest of them. Hand them to the cops or let him finish the job first. But the red and blue lights answer the question before our boy can naff. 2 officers walk into the alley with the energy of people who have seen everything after receiving a noise complaint from a neighbor. Taigyu instantly tells them about Young Kyul's involvement in human trafficking, and even reveals his hideout. Young Kyul immediately sees his opening and throws himself onto the pavement, performing the role of victim with everything he has, screaming about broken bones and pointing at Juo, who does not have a single scratch on him, while everyone else looks like they went through a car wash made of fists. He tells the officers that Juo is a heart mutant and that heart mutants are not allowed to just beat people up like this. The officers' expressions shift immediately and they close in asking for registration numbers and an ID card. Old boy has neither, and his face goes cold as the situation locks in around him. The moment his name hits any government database, the lab finds him instantly, and everything he has built since escaping the face, the freedom, Hayatsi, all of it disappears. Hayatsi appears like an angel sprinting into the alley completely out of breath. She smiles at the officers as if she was not just running full speed, and asks them to take a call. She holds out her phone and the officer takes it with visible skepticism. The voice on the other end introduces itself as Superintendent Han, team leader of the mutant special team. The officer goes rigid and snaps into a salute so fast his spine nearly gives out. The superintendent tells him the thugs are kidnappers while the mutant is a witness. She orders them to release him now without any further questions. Young Charles' face hits the pavement as the handcuffs go on and he screams about who was on that phone, while Taigyu watches the whole reversal happen in real time with his brain completely short-circuiting. He looks at Hayatsi standing there waving with a triumphant smile and asks who she even is. Our boy approaches her and asks how she got there. She explains she spotted him at school getting surrounded by suspicious people and followed. She looks at Taigu's destroyed face and asks what on earth happened. Juo tells her he got beaten up by some thugs. Taigu looks at the school beauty, then sees Juo and starts crying again from pure jealousy, saying our boy told him he had no friends and yet here he is. Once the chaos settles, Juo leans into the police car window and looks at Youngcho one more time, wanting to know who the buyer was and whether it was the Hermes laboratory. Youngcho looks genuinely confused and says he has never heard of that place. They were just going to hand him over to a local broker who specializes in trading mutants. Juo goes quiet and says he wants to meet that broker. Hayatsi slams her hand on the table at the convenience store and tells him absolutely not. She has heard about these brokers from her sister, and they are not just criminals, they hunt mutants specifically, and many of them are mutants themselves, a completely different category of dangerous. Our boy chooses food slowly and says that he wants to meet them even more. She stares at him, trying to find the logic. He wipes his mouth and explains simply that he might be able to find his friends through them. Taigu leans in and points out that Juo said he had no friends. Juo clarifies that not out here but back in the laboratory. The memory surfaces quietly. Guards in cages and a collar around his neck were being dragged through sterile corridors, wondering what new experiment was waiting. Then one day they took him somewhere different, further than he had ever traveled before, threw him into a room and locked the door. And when his eyes adjusted, he saw blades flying through the air and children in numbered gowns moving like they had been training since before they could read. He pressed himself against the wall, absolutely terrified. Just then, a blade whistled past his skull, thrown by a boy with cold eyes the moment the door opened, and then a girl slapped that same boy at the back of the head and told him to stop being a psycho. She pointed at Juo and told the room to look at the lab coat and figure it out. He was a test subject just like them. The other children crowded around and stared at the skeleton, not with fear exactly, but with the quiet recognition of shared trauma. One of them told him he looked fine, just like a skeleton, because he was a mutant. He said it so casually that something in Juo's chest loosened for the first time in years. They introduced themselves one by one: Li Jun, Chaewon, Yu Hana, Shin Hyun, who apologized for the skeleton comment with a slightly guilty grin. For the first time, those hollow eye sockets had something behind them that was not pain. Back at the convenience store, our boy looks at his bread and says the facility gathered test subjects from different labs and gave them basic education a few times a year. And because they were all test subjects, they were all mutants, which is maybe why they bonded so fast. Classes only happened a few times a year, so they did not see each other often. But they were his people. Tayo is a sobbing disaster across the table, tears and snot going everywhere, asking what kind of life Juo has been living. Hayatsi asks softly where those friends are now. Our boy says that on the day they escaped the lab together, they had to scatter to survive, and he has not found them since. Yuichi connects the dots immediately. That is why he wants the broker, because if those friends were caught after the escape, the broker network would know. Juo nods and she puts her hands flat on the table, telling him she will do everything she can to help find them. Taigu pumps his fist and says the same. Then Taigu holds up a phone with a smirk and reveals he lifted it off Young Chol before the cops arrived. He scrolls through the messages and finds the broker contact immediately. There was a handover planned for that very night at 7 o'clock. Juo checks the time and it is 7 right now. Somewhere across the city in a dark warehouse, a hooded figure stands in the middle of a room full of armed thugs who are very quickly realizing they made a serious error in judgment. They rush him with blades from every direction and he slips through every swing like the attacks are happening in slow motion. He tells them calmly that if you swing a blade like that, it will not cut a thing, demonstrates, and 3 men drop simultaneously. A desperate thug points a pistol, and before the trigger moves, the barrel is sliced clean off. The gunman stares at the useless metal tube in his hand and freezes. The hooded figure lowers his hood and looks at the room with a quiet, lethal smirk. His name is Chaewon, and he has apparently been very busy since the escape. He says if you use a blade correctly, you can cut through steel, and the heart of the sword activates while the whole warehouse goes very quiet very fast. The survivors take one look at what just happened to their crew and decide to run before they piss in their pants. Chaewon watches them go, flicks the blood off his blade, and tells them to do better next time. His phone buzzes and he checks the screen with total boredom to find 2 new messages from the buyer who was supposed to collect a mutant tonight. The message says they caught one and want to sell it immediately. Chaewon smirks and thinks of the new customer coming in. Meanwhile, our boy steps into the dark alleyway decided as the meeting point, scanning the shadows and telling himself to be careful. He told Haiji that he would only look at the brokers from a distance, but he is here for one reason only: to find a broker who might have information on his missing friends. He spots a heavy wrench on the ground and picks it up, figuring a weapon is not the worst idea if this goes sideways, and he needs to know about the mutant's ability first. Just then, a blade pins him against a pole before he can take another step, missing his neck by about an inch. A hooded figure steps out of the dark and asks what kind of rat shows up alone without a mutant to sell. Jacho stares at the sword, figures if this person is just a normal human he can end this fast, and lunges forward with everything he has. His fist is aimed directly at the face. The figure does not move, does not dodge, just stands there as Jacho's fist stops an inch from his nose. Our boy freezes because he knows that face. He says the name Chaewon out loud without thinking. The blade answers immediately with a horizontal slash that sends Jui flying through the air and he hits the dirt hard. His legs give up when he tries to get up. His tendons have been cut clean through. He looks back up at the figure standing over him and recognizes the sword work instantly, because a flashback tears through his mind of 10 years ago during the escape from Herma's lab. Concrete raining down and soldiers closing in from every direction, and a boy with a sword turning back saying he would open the path before slicing through several inches of solid concrete like it was paper. Back in the present, our boy tells himself it is definitely Chaewon, then does something that should be physically impossible and starts standing up on legs with severed tendons. Chaewon stares and asks if he is a heart mutant. Chaewon spits blood and reveals that he is Kim Ji-yu from the lab. The sword stops moving and Chaewon's finger trembles in the air as he says the name back like he is testing whether reality is working correctly. Our boy smiles through the blood and says it has been a long time. Then Chaewon's blade swings again and opens a fresh gash across Juo's arm, and when Juo grabs the wound and asks through gritted teeth why he is still attacking after recognizing him, Chaewon says calmly that watching the wound heal confirmed the identity, and he was just making sure. Then he attacks again and his blade moves in arcs that Juo cannot fully track. His jacket gets shredded and blood stains the fabric. Our boy realizes at this rate he is just going to keep bleeding out faster than he can recover and decides to close the distance and stop the source. He lunges and Chaewon sidesteps without effort, putting the blade straight through Jiwoo's arm in one clean motion and asking if he genuinely thought a punch was going to work against someone holding a sword. Jiwoo looks at the blade going through his forearm and instead of pulling back he grabs Chaewon's wrist with his free hand while the arm regenerates around the steel, locking the sword in place. Chaewon tries to pull it free and cannot, and he has about half a second to process what kind of grip strength is holding his weapon, before Jiwoo twists his entire body and launches him directly into the scaffolding behind them. Chaewon hits the metal structure, bounces off, and gets back to his feet with a new expression. He says Jiwoo looks somewhat useful now that he has put on some muscle, then asks why he ran away that day if he had this kind of power all along. The words land harder than the blade did. The flashback returns darker this time. The children are pinned down in the lab corridors with soldiers closing in. Chaewon's younger face screaming at Jio to grab a steel pipe and help, and the skeleton standing in the shadows, turning his back and running. Jio looks away in the present with sweat on his forehead and says he had no choice. If he had stayed, they all would have died. Chai Dewan's hand touches the steel scaffolding frame beside him, and something dark spreads outward from his fingers, blood vein roots crawling through the metal, and transforming the entire structure into an extension of his will. He looks down at our boy and says he has seen the full extent of the regeneration now, and if Jill owes in enough pieces, it will take a very long time to come back together. He tells him to go ahead and try running away again. A rain of blades drops from the shadows above, and Jiwi crosses his arms over his vitals and takes the hits, flesh tearing across both forearms, calculating that he needs his core intact to recover fast enough. Then he clocks the real attack too late. The blade storm was a distraction. Chaewon flashes past him with a single slash that cuts through every steel frame in the vicinity simultaneously, and the entire construction site comes down. The street outside filling with dust and screaming bystanders. Though when the cloud settles, our boy is standing in the middle of the wreckage with his wounds already closing. Chaewon loses all his brain cells after seeing the speed of the recovery, and says the regeneration has become incomparably faster than before. Jio wipes blood from his jaw and tells him he has misunderstood something, that he never ran away and fought until the end that day to protect everyone, and that coming here tonight was also to save their friends in case any of them got captured by brokers. Jio goes quiet and the killer's mask cracks slightly. Voices from the gathering crowd outside start filtering in, asking if there is someone in the rubble, and whether that might be a mutant. Chaewon decides the scene has gotten too crowded, sheaths his blade and tells Jui if he wants to talk more to come to his hideout. He pulls his hood back up and disappears into the city. Our boy stands alone in the demolished construction site watching him go. He thinks that Chaewon's personality has changed a lot. Then a memory surfaces of a younger Chaewon in a lab gown grinning and holding out food he made himself, asking Jui to try it. That kid was bright and loud and genuinely cheerful. Jitsu wonders what happened in the years between then and now, then follows the address. He arrives at the hideout and stops dead in his tracks. It is a burger restaurant, a busy neon-lit, fully operational fast food burger restaurant, and behind the counter is Chaewon, who 20 minutes ago was putting a sword through Jitsu's arm, now slicing onions with the same blade at a speed that makes the crowd lean forward in amazement. Girls are taking photos. Our boy walks in with Haiji and Taigu, and his jaw is almost on the floor when he sees Chaewon. Chaewon looks over, sees them, finishes the order he is plating, and jerks his head toward a booth. Taigu leans over the partition and introduces himself as a chance acquaintance, with an attitude that makes clear he is not impressed. Chaewon looks at him, looks at Chaewon and says it must be nice to be unemployed but still making friends. Taiji immediately tries to climb over the partition, and Haiji grabs him with both hands. Well, they settle into a booth and Chaewon gets serious, telling Jito to say again what he claimed about not running away. Chaewon looks at his cup and tells him the truth. There was a bomb hidden where they were trying to escape. He recognized the sound of the fuse because the lab had tested explosives on them enough times that the noise was burned into his memory. The guards were going to bury everyone under the rubble, and the stronger ones might have survived, but the weaker ones would not. So our boy grabbed as many of the explosives as he could carry and ran in the opposite direction to draw the blast away from the group. He woke up alone in the deep woods and went back immediately, but nobody was there. He assumed they all got out. Cheowon is quiet for a moment. Then he says he heard an explosion in the distance that day and asks if Juyo is seriously telling him he carried a bomb away by himself. Juyo says yes because he can survive an explosion. Chaoyuan puts his face in his hands and says he cannot believe that, and Juyo says it is the truth regardless because there was no time to explain. A single tear runs down Chaoyuan's face. He says he believes him. Then, without warning, his hand blurs and he demolishes an entire onion into perfect rings in 1 second, tosses it into the air along with tomato and lettuce in a perfectly timed arc, and assembles a burger in front of Jue that looks genuinely incredible. He slides it over and says he heard things were rough, so this one is a gift. Our boy takes one bite and his eyes go wide. He starts eating fast while fans crowd back around the counter asking for photos. Chaiwon comes back from the photos, sits down, and apologizes for almost cutting him down without listening. Chaiwon says it did not even hurt that much while his mouth is already full again. Chaiwon shakes his head and pushes the tray closer. Chaiwon almost smiles, tells Jui he can be normal too, and offers him a job on the spot at 150 above minimum wage. In the back booth, Taegu squints and says something feels off about this guy. Haiji tells him to keep his voice down. Jiro ignores the job offer and tells Chaewon the real reason he came. He asks why Chaewon was operating as a broker. He instantly gets angry and asks how he could work for the same people who kept them in the lab. Chaewon holds up a hand and tells him it is an act. In his spare time, he pretends to be a broker specifically to lure out and eliminate the people who hunt mutants, and his eye goes cold and focused when he says he is doing this to wipe those people out entirely. Juzo exhales for the first time in what feels like an hour and tells Chaewon he was genuinely scared for a second. Then he looks around at the burger restaurant, the apron, the manager badge, the fans outside, and tells Chaewon sincerely that he looks like a totally normal person. He then says he wants to find the others, and if Chaewon needs help taking down a broker, then Juzo is in. But in exchange, he wants to know where the rest of their friends ended up. Chaewon slams his fist on the table with a grin that has not changed since they were children, and says he actually needs to take down a specific broker right now, and with Jui's power, it should be easy. They bump fists across the table. The deal is locked in. Chaewon waves them off at the door and promises to call with the plan later. Chaewon waves back and the three of them head down the darkening street. Haiji says it is good that the friend turned out not to be shady. Taegu is not fully convinced, pointing out that 3 years is a long time and people change. Haiji admits she was scared when the words human trafficker came up. Our boy looks back at the fading lights of the restaurant and tells them that Chaewon has not changed at all since they were kids. He means it completely. Haiji points out that Chaewon said he would message our boy, but our boy does not actually own a phone. Our Sigma grins and pulls one out of his pocket. Taegu stares at the screen and his tiny brain stops working. That is Youngkill's phone. Our guy has been casually using the stolen phone of the man who just tried to sell him to a lab this entire time. Truly the most unbothered individual on Earth. Across the city in a dark alley, a mutant in a purple tracksuit is running for his life. The thugs chasing him are closing in fast and he stumbles, coughs up a thick yellow liquid, then turns and spits a stream of viscous fluid at his pursuers who scatter screaming. He almost smiles thinking he bought himself some distance, then a fist connects with his face and he hits the dirt hard. A massive shadow stands over him, and he looks up begging them to understand that all his ability does is produce oil, and it is completely useless. One thug grabs him by the hair and laughs about how some mutants are basically a waste of space, while another lights a cigarette and says easy money is still money, and someone is paying a full billion per head regardless. Both the oil mutant screams, and then a calm voice cuts through the alley from the entrance. Li Chaowen appears and asks if a billion is really all they are offering. A blade moves faster than the question and opens a thug's neck before anyone can react. He looks at the remaining crew and says if they are all risking their lives out here, the payout should honestly be higher. Bodies drop in sequence until one desperate survivor fumbles for a gun with shaking hands. Chaowen grabs the barrel and metal spikes erupt from inside the pistol's frame, shredding the mechanism and the hand holding it simultaneously. He steps over the guy and tells the floor that next time they should collapse somewhere with less metal. The oil mutant looks up sobbing with relief and points out they are both mutants, which somehow guarantees safety. Chaewon tells him to shut up, pulls out his phone and reports that the stolen mutant has been recovered and can be sent straight to the lab. The guy he just saved is watching this happen in real time. The boss praises Chaewon's efficiency and Chaewon mentions there is something else. He found Kim Jio and the boss went completely silent. Chaewei confirms the deal is still on and says he will hand him over tomorrow. Later that night, Chaewei is in a quiet kitchen, wearing an apron, dicing carrots with the same precision he uses on everything else, running through the plan in his head. He thinks luring our boy out will be easy because he trusts Chaewei completely. But regeneration is the real problem and ordinary methods will not cut his body open. He needs a location loaded with iron so he can use his ability at full range. He adds salt, settles on a spot, and brings a pot of potato curry to the table where his younger sister Chae-yoon is waiting in her wheelchair. She lights up the moment she sees it. He tells her he packed extra potatoes specifically for her. He then reveals that he cannot stay tonight, and the door clicks shut behind him. Meanwhile, in a completely different apartment, Haiji is in her kitchen following an AI-generated recipe with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. The AI suggested braised short ribs with fresh tangerines and strawberries, and she is fully committed. She is stir-frying meat and fruit together, genuinely convinced she has a hidden talent. She messages her sister bragging about the fruit ribs, but her sister responds with a single question mark. Haiji decides her sister simply does not appreciate high-level cuisine, and saves her a portion anyway. She brings the pot to the living room where our boy is sitting on the floor with his phone and his dog plushie, waiting for Chaewon to call. She asks if he is really that happy about seeing his friend today, and he hugs the plushie and laughs properly for the first time, admitting he really missed him. She notices that this is the most relaxed she has ever seen him. Our boy drifts into the memory where he always used to sit alone at the back of the room trying to disappear into himself. Young Chaewon would come over anyway and ask why he was always by himself, and our guy would panic, not knowing how to handle attention. One day, Chaewon grabbed his sleeve, shouted in genuine shock about where his arm had gone, and disappeared for 3 seconds. He then came back with a metal blade that he attached directly to the missing arm. He stepped back, pointed at the mirror, and said, "Tada!" Our boy screamed while Chaewon was completely convinced he had just performed a major upgrade. Just then, a girl in a patient gown walked in, took one look, and told Chaewon to stop bullying him. Chaewon insisted he was making him cooler. Our boy, still staring at the sword arm in the mirror, quietly said it was actually kind of awesome. The girl stood there not understanding either of them. Chaewon thrust his fist forward. Our boy stared at it with genuine confusion, and Chaewon explained that when friends trust each other, they bumped fists to prove it. Their knuckles connected with a small thump, and that was how it all started. They're back in the present. Our boy smiles at the plushie and tells Haiji that Chaewon was the coolest guy back then, and he basically followed him everywhere. She stares at him, trying to understand why anyone would consider a sword welded to a missing arm a gift rather than a crime. But she decides not to engage with that logic, and announces it is time to eat. She presents the pot. Our guy looks inside and his brain completely glitches because he has never seen braised meat sitting next to whole strawberries and tangerine slices, and neither has anyone else. He takes a full bite and starts crying. It is genuinely delicious. The AI was completely right. He tears through the entire pot at speed, praising everything while Haiji watches with a huge smile. Fry sits beside him watching each bite with enormous eyes, and our boy asks if the dog wants some. Haiji shuts that down immediately and promises Fry a proper meal later. Our boy is still going through the pot when the phone buzzes with a call from a contact saved as a broker. He picks it up knowing it is Chaewon, and a panicked voice screams for him to come help immediately. Chaewon says he was chasing people connected to the laboratory and the situation completely spiraled out of his control. The word laboratory hits our boy like a rock, and Haiji watches the shift happen. Juyo is already standing and shouting that he is on his way before the sentence even finishes. The call ends and a message follows with an address, an abandoned factory on the edge of the city. Our boy takes one last bite of the fruit ribs, apologizes to Haiji for leaving, and is out the door. She tries to follow and he stops her firmly, telling her it is too dangerous and promising he will be right back. He arrives at the factory and finds it too quiet for somewhere a person is supposed to be trapped. He scans the room and realizes that the palace is full of rusty iron shelves, metal shipping containers, iron plate flooring, pipes and bolts, and scraps scattered across every surface. Chaewon picked the one location on Earth where his ability turns the entire building into a weapon, and our boy walks straight in like it was a pizza delivery. Before he can fully process this, a mechanical hum vibrates through the floor and curved metal blades erupt from the iron plating in every direction like a forest of steel teeth rising from the ground. There is no space to dodge. The blades tear through him in multiple places and he gets lifted off the floor, suspended in the air, blood dripping from his lips as he stares down at the steel going through his chest in complete disbelief. From above, Chaewon crouches down with a cold expression and thanks him for coming. Our boy asks through gritted teeth what he is doing, reminding him that he said he was the one who got captured. Chaewon says it is exactly what it looks like and drops down with his sword already drawn. He calmly reveals that Geo was fooled. Tall R Sigma tears himself off the blades and tries to fight back, but Chaewon is already on him. His sword is moving in precise arcs, and a brutal kick to the chest sends Jui flying backward through a pile of wooden crates. He hits the floor in the debris, physically wrecked and emotionally blindsided by someone he shared dinner with an hour ago. Jui tells him almost gently that he was actually really happy to see him today, that seeing him with a face after knowing him as a skeleton for 7 years felt strange, and that talking with him reminded him of the old days. Then he says he lied and he is a real broker who captures heart mutants and hands them to the laboratory, and he came here specifically to send our boy back. Aldai stares up from the floor covered in blood, searching for the person he bumped fists with. Chaewon goes back on the offensive immediately, and fresh waves of metal blades start erupting from the floor and walls. Our boy rips an iron plate off a machine and uses it as a shield, screaming at Chaewon to snap out of it. Chaewon drives iron spikes through the center of the shield and into our boy's shoulder. Just skids backward, while asking if Chaewon is really still working for the same people who tortured both of them. He hurls a piece of scaffolding straight at Chaewon and tells him to wake up. Chaewon's eyes flare cold, predatory red, and he slices through a row of thick metal pipes like paper. Our boy clicks his tongue and accepts that talking is completely done. Taichi charges with everything he has. Chaewon dodges effortlessly and opens a long diagonal cut across his chest. Our guy spits blood and keeps moving, ignoring the wound completely. And for the first time in the fight, a flicker of genuine surprise crosses Chaewon's face because nobody should still be moving after that. Then our boy's fist connects directly with Chaewon's face, and the crack echoes through the entire warehouse. Chaewon stumbles, realizing the damage he has been dealing would have killed a normal person 10 times over, and it is not slowing our guy down at all. He decides to cut him so fast that Jui's only focus shifts to regenerating instead of attacking. He thinks back to the time in the laboratory during the 2025 regeneration response experiment. A younger Jui is locked in a testing chamber in chains, looking up at the observation glass with hollow eyes. Then the heavy doors open and a young Char Dillon stepped through in hospital whites holding a weapon he was forced to carry. The intercom orders subject A24 to attack with full capability. Young Char Dillon stands there and screams back that he will not do it. The lab's response is immediate. High-voltage electricity rips through the collar around his neck and drops him to the tiles convulsing. Our boy watches and shouts at him to just follow the orders before they kill him. Chaewon knows that he is lying completely because watching him get electrocuted for his sake is the one thing he cannot stand. He grips his own throat through the shocks and still does not raise the sword. Our boy watches the electricity crackle through Chaewon again and makes a decision. He starts throwing insults, calling him a weakling, mocking the sword-hard ability. The words land hard and something finally snaps. Driven by the electricity still running through his nervous system and a rage he has nowhere else to direct, young Chaewon draws his blade and lunges forward. The sword tears through our boy's skeletal frame in a spray of dark crimson. Our guy stares at the wound for a split second, wondering if he provoked his friend a little too well. The experiment gets declared complete and researchers record their results with clinical indifference, while Chaewon stands over his fallen friend, whites soaked through, eyes wide and unfocused. Our boy lies there gasping and then notices something strange. It does not hurt as much as it should. He looks at his wounds and then back at Chaewon with confusion. Chaewon drops to his knees beside him and tells him quietly to stay still and pretend the pain is worse than it actually is, so the researchers do not get suspicious. Our guy looks at Chaewon's arm and sees that it is covered in deep wounds he just gave him. Chaewon cut himself too, telling our boy to shut up and not get them caught. Our guy asks why he would do something that reckless. Chaewon looks away and explains that the lab intentionally keeps our boy's blood levels low to suppress his regeneration on purpose, and by cutting himself and letting his sword blood cover our guy during the experiment, he was secretly giving him the nutrients he needed to survive. The memory fades and the fight picks back up, Chaewon's blade opening a fresh arc across our boy's torso. Our guy takes the hit and drives his fist into Chaewon's jaw in the same motion, and the two of them crash into a savage exchange with neither giving the other a moment to breathe. Then our boy pulls his punch just before it connects and stops, searching Chaewon's eyes for anything familiar. Chaewon stares back with cold calculation, delivering a shallow cut across our boy's arm. He then warns Jui that he will capture his friends, Haiji and Taigu. Hearing this, our boy tries to attack him, but he cuts both of his hands and mocks that it's easy to kidnap two defenseless students in this city. That is the wrong thing to say. Our boy shoves his arm into Chaewon's mouth and grabs him from the inside, telling him not to cross that line. Haiji and Taigu are his people and they are completely off limits. He coldly mentions that he doesn't care about Chaewon anymore, and he is going to kick his ass now. The resurrection heart pulses violent crimson, and our guy drains blood directly from Chaewon through the open wound, absorbing it into his own veins as fuel. He closes the gap immediately and drives a punch into Chaewon's chest that sends him skidding across the iron floor, and 3 of his ribs snap clean. Another punch distorts Chaewon's face and sends blood into the air. Then our guy is already moving again at a speed Chaewon's reflexes cannot track, slamming him into industrial scrap and pinning him against the floor. Chaewon pushes himself up, slams his palm onto the metal deck and erupts a forest of jagged spikes to buy distance. Our boy weaves through the rising blades without slowing down, moving like he already knows where each one will appear. Chaewon watches this and understands he is looking at a combat machine that is still getting stronger mid-fight, then presses his hand harder into the floor and taps into something he did not want to use. Deep cracks spread across the factory as he draws every scrap of iron from the surrounding structure into himself. The process tears at his own organs as metal merges with his cells. He stands up as a living porcupine of jagged steel, hundreds of blades protruding from every inch of his skin, declaring that no regeneration can save our boy from getting shredded at close range. Our guy sprints straight at him without hesitating. The blades sink deep into his chest and shoulders, but he keeps pushing forward to drive a haymaker directly into Chaewon's chest. The shockwave ripples through the entire factory, and Chaewon's ultimate defense shatters. Our boy looks him in the eyes through the blades still stuck in his torso and says calmly that a few metal spikes through the gut genuinely do not hurt, not compared to what the Ermaz lab put him through for 10 years. He launches into a final relentless assault, dismantling the iron shielding piece by piece while screaming that the worst part is not the blades going through his body but that a friend is the one putting them there. The final punch lands on Chawan's face and drives him into the ground, and the factory goes silent. Our boy stands over him and quietly admits that this hurt more than any of the blades did. Chawan looks up from the floor and after a long silence tells him flatly that he was going to sell him back to the laboratory for his own gain. Our guy stares at him somewhere between grief and fury and then completely snaps, delivering a flurry of punches while screaming what he is even talking about. His hits are filled with anger because he simply cannot accept that the person he trusted most became this. He grabs Chawan by the collar and pulls him up until they are face to face and begs him to explain anything at all, his eyes wide and searching for whatever is left of the boy who used to attach swords to his missing arm as a gesture of friendship. He asks if Chawan ever actually considered him a friend. Chawan's single open eye looks back at him and says, "Yeah, just that." The word hits our boy like a door opening onto something he cannot look at directly, and a memory surfaces immediately. A younger Chawan running and laughing with a boy in a skull mask. Kids who had no business being happy, finding moments of it anyway. Stealing apples to eat in secret. Bumping fists in a testing chamber. Back in the present, Chawan stares at the ceiling and says he has nothing left to say, cutting off any hope of explanation with flat efficiency. Then the factory floods with light. High-powered beams sweep across the industrial floor and dozens of armed officers in urban camo swarm in from every entrance. Our boy shields his eyes and the breath goes out of him immediately. His body recognizes armed uniforms before his brain can catch up. The traumatic memory of the laboratory floods back in one wave, and his breathing goes shallow and fast as the officers take positions with weapons trained. Every escape route is gone, and our guy is completely boxed in with Chawan unconscious on his shoulder. They open fire at both of them, and the captain raises his hand to give the final order. Chawan looks at everything and decides to run. He picks up Chawan on his shoulder and sprints away. Just then, a slender hand reaches calmly into the frame and takes the radio right out of his grip. However, he is instantly surrounded by the armed forces and they close every possible way of his escape. An officer radios in that the heart mutant has been confirmed and requests immediate backup to secure the target. He screams that both targets are heart mutants and are to be secured immediately. And Duang, in a tailored pinstripe suit with short black hair, steps into the middle of the armed formation like she owns the building. She announces she is taking control of the scene as she is the Mutant Special Police Task Force leader. The captain stares at her with his jaw nearly hitting the floor. She orders everyone to lower their weapons and the ceasefire drops the room into heavy silence. She walks toward our boy who is still holding Chawan and stops a few feet away. She looks at him directly and addresses him by name. He tenses, wondering how this woman knows who he is. She leans in and tells him not to be afraid, says she has already heard about his situation, and then delivers the detail that stops him cold. She is Haiji's older sister. She introduces herself as Haislane and turns to the tactical team to issue orders. The captain steps into her space and asks if her task force can just ignore standard field protocol. Her assistant shoves a warrant for Chawan toward him and tells him plainly to back off. The captain scoffs and says he is not talking about Chawan but the kid in the black t-shirt, because CCTV already identified our guy as an unregistered mutant, putting him under civilian police jurisdiction. A fresh wall of rifles swings toward our boy and he is already thinking what he should do now. Then Hyen snaps her fingers and red geometric lines crawl across the surface of every rifle simultaneously, spreading like a circuit diagram gone rogue, and then every single weapon shatters into pieces at once. The elite squad stands there staring at their empty palms and the scrap at their feet while one of them whispers in genuine terror that this is the team leader's mutant ability. Hyen looks at the captain and notes they clearly did not grasp how out of their depth they were. She snaps her fingers a second time and tells him this case is tied directly to the Hermes laboratory. That name hits the captain like a door slamming shut. He tells her grudgingly that she should have led with that and orders his team to hand over control. Two soldiers put Chawan to his feet, and our boy immediately asks where they are taking him. The assistant explains Chawan will be processed through formal arrest, since he is a wanted criminal. Our guy watches the handcuffs go on and says nothing, his expression doing all the work. The assistant then informs him that his testimony is required for a private interview with the team leader. The scene then shifts to Hyen sitting across the table from him in a clinical interview room with a subtle, confident smirk that suggests she already knows most of what she is about to ask. Our boy shifts in his seat until she cuts through the silence and gets straight to the point. Her team is hunting the Hermes laboratory. She already heard about the escape 3 years ago from her sister, and she slides a document across explaining that our boy has been kept completely in the dark about what the lab has been doing since then. All of his fellow escapees have already been recaptured. Our guy goes pale. Hyen continues, explaining the lab's catch and release policy where they deliberately let subjects escape just to hunt them down again. A calculated system designed to destroy hope and force total submission through the proof that freedom was never real. Our boy stares at the wall and realizes in the silence that Chawan might have been broken by exactly that same tactic. Just then, an assistant announces the witness they requested has arrived. A young girl in a wheelchair is brought in looking fragile and overwhelmed. This is Lee Chawan, his sister. Hyen kneels to her level, takes her hand gently and promises not to force anything, but explains they need to understand what drove her brother to make the choices he made. Chawan looks down and starts crying, saying everything that happened was entirely her fault and her brother was not always this person. She takes them back 3 years to the day Chawan came home. He burst through the front door, still in a blood-stained hospital gown, found his sister alone in a dark, derelict living room, and discovered both parents were gone. He collapsed and held her and sobbed apologies for being too late. To pay her mounting medical bills, he took construction work under the table. But without a legal identity, he was constantly exploited, and Chawan's condition kept worsening until she was coughing blood. Then one day, tactical units kicked the door in and pinned Chawan to the floor, while Chawan screamed and reached for him from across the room. A man in a suit walked in, looked down at the defeated boy, and offered him the most brutal recruitment pitch in history. An identity, a job, and enough money to save his sister, in exchange for the lab's dirty work in the shadows. Chawan apologizes through tears, knowing every piece of stability she ever had came at a cost. Her brother paid a loan and never told her about. Our boy watches her being wheeled out and processes what he just heard. The man who betrayed him was a desperate brother trying to buy a life for his little sister. Hayden makes one thing clear. The tragic motive does not erase the real betrayal. Chawan still chose to hand our boy back to the people who tortured both of them. And if the plan had worked, our guy would not be sitting in this room, but back under the lab's knives. Our boy looks down and says nothing because she is not wrong. Haemin gestures toward the wall-mounted phone and offers him one final chance to speak to Chawan before the legal process takes over completely. Our boy steps up to the phone and starts dialing. Our boy finally speaks, saying the secret is completely out and asking why Chawan kept it bottled up all this time. If they were supposed to be brothers, why not just say something? Jida is not looking for an apology, just some kind of truth, and the silence on the other end is deafening. He calls Chawan a traitorous bastard, slams his hand down hard enough to crack the counter, and reminds him that he tried to sell a friend back to that living hell. Chawan sits there with his head bowed, saying nothing. Our boy tells him to spend the rest of his life sitting in the weight of what he did, because whatever bond they had left is finished. Chawan accepts the sentence without argument, admits the words are fair, and says he is not asking for forgiveness he does not deserve. He moves to hang up, and our boy stops him. He tells Chawan the police have promised to take care of his sister, that while Chawan is definitely trash, his sister is innocent, and our boy made sure she will not pay for his mistakes. Serve your time and get out. Then he adds one unexpected request for another burger, later because the last one was genuinely good. Our boy lowers the receiver, and the line goes dead. A memory surfaces of a skeleton still looking out for everyone around him, even when he was barely human. Then a younger Chawan eating whatever scraps they could find together. Just two kids trying to survive a nightmare. Back in the present, Chawan sits alone in the dark and whispers a final thank you to the boy he almost destroyed. Our boy hangs the phone back on the hook, finally done with the past. Yuri looks up from her screen and tells him he is a lot more generous than she would have been. Our Sigma turns his back and admits quietly that he truly believed his other friends had found freedom too, that he just wanted to believe they were living better lives than the ones they had in the lab. Then he turns back with new resolve and asks for her help to save the ones still trapped. Hyman fixes her gaze on the boy who has finally found a reason to fight beyond just surviving, and asks if he is really going to be okay with what comes next. Our boy says it does not matter as long as they get the job done. He looks down at his hand and vows to save his friends and tear that entire laboratory to pieces no matter what it takes. Later that night, the scene shifts to the apartment. Hyjin bursts through the door with her entire professional persona gone, shouts for Hyji, and practically tackles her little sister into a massive hug. Our boy follows behind completely bewildered because this witch has the audacity to go from terrifying task force leader to Oraihan in 4K. The woman who made an entire tactical unit cry by snapping her fingers is currently baby talking about skincare. Our boy stands in the hallway unable to process any of this. Hyji looks over at our boy and asks if he is alright after everything that happened. Our Sigma scratches the back of his neck, manages a small smile, and says it is fine now that her sister handled everything. Hyji lights up and asks if he is ready to finally finish the meal they never got to. He nods quickly while his stomach reminds him he has not eaten properly in what feels like several business days. Hyrin checks her phone and goes completely pale reading Hyji's message about the recipe, which involves strawberries, oysters, and a rainbow vomiting rabbit sticker. Before she can process this, Hyji presents a massive pot with a proud flourish and announces the sweet and sour short rib special. Steam rises from a bizarre mixture of meat, whole oranges, and strawberries. Hyrin stares at the pot with an expression that says everything without a single word. She carefully lifts a piece of orange with her chopsticks and wonders out loud what kind of person puts oysters in a beef dish. Hyji happily pulls out her phone to show off the AI recommendation, completely convinced that because the instructions were thorough, it must be a masterpiece. Hyji delivers the cold hard truth directly to her sister's face. This is not edible. Hiteji counters that she modified the recipe specifically to help her sister recover energy with extra vitamin C, which somehow makes things worse. Then our boy just picks up his chopsticks and digs in. His face immediately floods with tears of genuine joy, and he announces he could eat this every single day. Hiteji watches him with a deeply suspicious gaze, wondering if the lab permanently destroyed his taste buds. She forces a thumbs up just to avoid breaking her little sister's heart. Haijiji clenches her fists in triumph, believing she has created a masterpiece. Every bowl ends up completely empty and Haijin sets down her chopsticks, looking like someone who just survived something. After dinner, she announces there is a serious matter to discuss about our boy's living situation. Having a healthy young man staying with 2 women is not ideal. She tried checking for vacancies in an official police residence. Everyone waits and she hangs up, reporting the residences are completely full. Since there are no other options, she tells our boy he can stay with them temporarily. He lights up and thanks her so many times it becomes its own problem. Fry barks happily to join the celebration. Before our boy can get too comfortable, Hyen starts scribbling a list on a piece of paper. His smile drops instantly. She slaps it on the table, makes it very clear his living space is limited to the living room, and announces he is never allowed to step in Haiji's bedroom. She makes 10 rigid house rules covering everything from bathroom usage to kitchen boundaries. She leans in and whispers that the consequences for breaking these rules are worse than anything he can imagine. Our boy grips the edge of the paper, looking genuinely terrified. She gives him a dark, intense glare specifically about the bedroom rule, and our Sigma, who just survived getting impaled on metal blades, is visibly trembling as he agrees to follow every single item on the list. Hoisin tells our boy to follow her outside immediately. He swallows hard, wondering what fresh ordeal is coming next. She explains it is time to officially test the full extent of his mutation. They arrive at a secluded, deserted construction site, and she tells him that if he wants to help take down the lab, she needs to know exactly what he is capable of before they move forward. Hinshiya, our guy, explains that as long as he is not killed outright, his body can repair itself from almost any injury, then lays out the catch. His healing factor consumes blood, and if his reserves run low, his regeneration drops significantly. Hearing narrows her eyes, not fully convinced that it is all he has. She brings up the factory fight and points out that the damage he left behind did not look like the work of a healer. It looked like someone with insane physical strength. Our boy admits the mutation has permanently boosted all his physical stats well beyond average. He adds that his abilities spike even higher whenever he absorbs fresh blood. She taps her temple, determines that blood is essentially a high-octane fuel source, and turns to signal the start of the real test. She gives him a grip dynamometer and orders him to squeeze it as hard as he can. Our boy stares at the device, the same kind usually held by people who treated him as a test subject, then settles his grip and applies maximum pressure. However, it shatters with a sharp crack, and plastic shards fly everywhere. Hein's cool exterior finally cracks as she stares at the wreckage. That tester was designed to handle 500 kilograms, and he just turned it into scrap. Our boy immediately starts panicking and apologizing for breaking the expensive equipment. Haibin just watches him because he is significantly stronger than even a gorilla. She raises a hand and the rocks around them begin floating. Our boy freezes, eyes wide, not expecting an actual combat demonstration. She launches the jagged stones at him with lethal speed, and our Sigma blurs into motion, twisting and diving to avoid the projectiles with a predatory grace that outpaces his own thinking. Then a stone catches him right on the forehead, and he yelps in pain. Even with his speed, her telekinetic control is completely unpredictable. Kaisen stops the assault, looking moderately impressed, noting he dodged almost all of them, even with random chaotic patterns. Her verdict is that he is officially a high-rank heart mutant. Our boy asks if her ability is some kind of superpower, and she gives him the deadpan look, shutting him down immediately by explaining everything they can do is strictly within the realm of science. Her specific mutation is a national secret. She turns and gives him his first real order: keep his abilities hidden and stay under the radar as much as humanly possible. Being too visible is exactly how he ends up back in a cage. Our boy stares back as he thinks about every fight he has thrown himself into since escaping, and realizing he has gone into completely Thanos mode. Tension breaks when Haiji's voice shouts from a distance. She jogs toward them with a plastic bag and a cold can of soda. After a morning of being tested and pelted with rocks, our boy is more than ready for a break. Hyven watches him with a rare look of sympathy, realizing that underneath all the power he is genuinely just a kid who has lost everything. She heads out for a work call and leaves the two of them alone. Our boy takes a massive gulp of the soda and nearly chokes on his own excitement, shouting that it is absolutely delicious and staring at the can like it is a miracle in a bottle. Hyven laughs at the over-the-top reaction. Then his expression shifts. Something about the taste triggers a buried memory, and a flashback hits him. Chaowan in a makeshift kitchen serving up a massive burger with a rare genuine smile. His face darkens, and Haiji notices the change immediately. But our boy looks away and mutters that it is nothing. Chaowan closes his eyes and admits he was just thinking about his friend. The two of them sit together on a construction bench, and our boy confesses it was not just Chaowan. He was close with all the other test subjects too. They were not just colleagues, they were his only family. A moment flashes through his mind of being strapped to a chair as a living skeleton while scientists treated him like a broken object. But even in that hellhole, they found small moments of humanity, gathering around a tiny makeshift cake and pretending to be normal children for a few minutes. In the present, our boy looks devastated. He had always dreamed of all of them escaping together, but he was the only one who made it out. He clenches his fist and makes a silent, ironclad vow to go back and save every single one of them, no matter what it takes. However, our boy snaps out of it and softly admits he does not know how much help he can actually be compared to someone like her sister. She responds with a beaming smile and tells him he can count on her for anything anytime. Our Sigma blinks, genuinely caught off guard by unconditional kindness because that is simply not something he has experienced before. A rare genuine smile touches his lips. For the first time, he feels like he might actually have a real ally on the outside. A few days later, the scene shifts to the gates of Sawmill High School, a completely new world for someone who spent his whole life in a concrete bunker. News of a transfer student spreads like wildfire inside the classroom, and a group of girls is already losing their minds over his looks. The history teacher slams his book down, announces the transfer student, and our boy stands at the front feeling completely exposed. He forces out his name with sweat on his forehead as 100 eyes stare him down. After he is seated, classmates whisper all around him about his name and where he transferred from. He remains silent and recalls Heise's words, who assign him a mission to join Heise's school. Just then, the boys bombard him with questions about social media and soccer, and our boy just looks down, feeling overwhelmed. He remembers Heise sent him here to become a normal person because after all those years, he still acts like a lab rat. Then a loud bang echoes through the room as a massive hand slams down on his desk. Taegu stands there, glares at the crowd, throws an arm around our boy's shoulder, and rattles off a completely fabricated backstory about him being a local transfer retired from gaming who excels at every sport. With a confident thumbs up, Taegu claims they are childhood friends and shoos everyone away to give the old friends space to catch up. The students disperse. Our boy looks up at Taegu with a genuinely relieved smile and thanks him for stepping in. Taegu leans in seriously and says he heard everything from Heise and knows exactly what our boy needs to do to pass as a normal student. Our Sigma feels a surge of confidence now that he has an ally who knows this school inside out. Taegu strikes a dramatic pose and tells our boy to ask him anything. That confidence lasts about 3 minutes until Taegu gets called on in class and stammers that he does not know the answer. The teacher asks what bacteria caused the Black Death, and Taegu, after claiming the teacher is underestimating his intelligence, shouts COVID at the top of his lungs. The room goes silent before the teacher whacks him with a pointer, and the class erupts into laughter. Our boy cannot help but chuckle, his nerves finally settling. Then the teacher points directly at our boy to test the transfer student. Taigu's eyes widen in terror, assuming disaster. To everyone's shock, our Sigma raises his hand and correctly identifies Yersinia pestis with a calm, confident smile. The teacher adjusts his glasses and fires off rapid questions about the Crusades, Roman history, the French Revolution, and World War I. Our boy is speedrunning a normal student's brain while the rest are still stuck in tutorial mode. The teacher leads a round of applause for the new genius, and the classmates whisper about having a literal genius in their midst. Outside, Taegu asks how our guy knows such obscure history details if he is clueless about them. Our boy calmly admits he has no idea what most of the events actually were, just that he has heard the names. Taegu stares with a face full of question marks. Our boy reveals that he was trapped in a padded lab cell with nothing but textbooks to keep him company, explaining the scientists let him read to have something to do and that he stayed motivated by imagining he would have things to talk about if he ever made friends. Back in the present, Taegu goes completely silent, then properly starts crying, completely moved by the loneliest existence he has ever heard described. He eventually pulls himself together, throws his jacket over his shoulder, and announces PE is next and he is going to show our boy what real fun looks like. The PE teacher announces a joint dodgeball match in the gymnasium. Our boy whispers to Taegu that he has no idea what dodgeball actually is, which is just another item on the long list of normal things this guy has never experienced. Taegu gives him a confident thumbs up and tells him to trust his lead. That confidence lasts about 5 seconds before a ball slams directly into Taegu's face and he goes down hard. The opposing team laughs hysterically. Taegu stands back up with a nosebleed, insisting it was nothing, and points out that our boy is now the last person standing on their entire team. Taegu pulls him aside quickly and warns him to only use half his physical strength so he does not expose his powers. Our Sigma nervously agrees and stays on the court, repeating the half-strength mantra to himself, completely overthinking how to measure half of inhuman power. An opponent winds up and launches the ball with serious force. Our boy dodges with a sharp movement at the last second while still stuck in his head trying to calculate the right output level for a high school game. Then a realization hits him. He wonders if Taijin meant literally splitting his body's power down the middle and starts dodging every throw using only his upper body while his legs remain completely planted without moving an inch. The students are gawking, completely convinced the new kid is a professional athlete. Taizu spots the bizarre spectacle from the sidelines and frantically waves his arms, yelling for our boy to stop because he took the advice way too literally. Our boy pauses, looking confused, wondering if half meant left and right instead, and right as he stops to think, a ball flies in and catches him square in the face. He ends up flat on the gym floor, motionless. He eventually pushes himself up with a fresh nosebleed and instead of being upset, breaks into a fit of laughter, wiping the blood from his lip. His classmates breathe a collective sigh of relief, realizing he is genuinely having a good time. Up in the stands, some girls are already becoming fans, and Heisen watches from the sidelines with a small, satisfied smile. The school day ends and our boy walks home alongside Taegyu and Hyzendage. A week passes and our boy settles into the rhythm of school, watching Taegyu dominate on the soccer field and realizing for the first time that nobody here is controlling his every move. He buys whatever snack he wants from the school bar, munches on a bun while Taegyu chatters endlessly beside him, and on their walk home admits the whole experience still feels a little awkward, but he is learning. Our boy confesses he never would have known life could be like this if he had not met the two of them, offering them a bright, genuine thank you with his backpack slung over his shoulders. Taegyu immediately tries to hide his embarrassment and grumbles that he still has a lot to teach the kid about surviving high school. The scene shifts to a secluded warehouse on the edge of the city. A group of thugs in dark suits walks through the building, saying the higher-ups have not yet realized they have been skimming goods. He suddenly stops and narrows his eyes, sensing something wrong. They spot a man sitting alone in the shadows, casually eating instant ramen like he has not a single care in the world. This is Kang Do-hyung, and he greets them cheerfully, telling them they are early and asking them to wait since he has not finished his meal yet. The boss orders one of his men to kick the guy out. The subordinate lunges forward, but Do-hyung is faster, blocks the man's arm while yelling about his spilled soup, and the boss erupts, calling him crazy for prioritizing ramen over his own safety. Do-hyung stays crouched, ignoring the threats entirely while peering at the men through his sunglasses, holding a sausage skewer like he is checking a grocery list. He complains the tint makes it too hard to see, lifts the sunglasses, gives them a chilling grin, and says that is much better. His demeanor shifts from eccentric to dangerous in about half a second. A massive impact ripples through the air and one thug tries to attack, but Do-hyung stares him down with terrifying intensity and warns the man to get lost while he is still feeling nice enough not to kill anyone. The thug watches his own arm being crushed by something beyond the matrix of his brain. Do-hyung's face begins to crack and harden into the texture of ancient stone, tells the panicking men to stop being dramatic and face their fate, then stands tall as his body transforms into a living weapon. He asks exactly how much cash they stole from the lab and makes it very clear he is here for the money. Inside his chest beats the heart of rock, a mass of cracked stone and glowing red energy. Kang Do-hyung raises a hand made entirely of solid gray rock and tells the thugs he will be taking their stolen cash as a settlement. A week later, our boy is running alongside his classmates on the school field, actually starting to look like a regular student for the first time. Taegyu screams at him to take a shot at the goal. Our boy executes a textbook perfect turn, the form is flawless, and completely whiffs the ball before landing flat on his back with his legs in the air. His classmates lose it laughing, and our boy sits on the grass laughing along with them, quietly wondering if he finally looks like a normal person. Losong, after school, the trio walks home in the afternoon sun, and our boy stops dead in front of a chicken skewer, completely mesmerized by the smell. Taegyu threatens to eat it himself. Our boy clutches it to his chest, insisting he is saving it for fry. Hyzendage reminds him that seasoned food is not good for dogs. Then a pained groan from a nearby flower bed interrupts everything. They find a man in a navy tracksuit face down on the concrete, groaning about extreme hunger. This is Kang Do-hyung, and he is completely drained from an earlier fight. He reaches a trembling hand toward a flower bed, thinking he can absorb some minerals to stay conscious, and our boy grabs his arm with a dead serious expression, warning that eating dirt will only hurt his stomach, and that dandelion leaves are actually edible if he is that desperate. Hyzendage and Taegyu watch in bewilderment from a safe distance. Do-hyung frantically clarifies that he is not a homeless man. Nobody is convinced. Then his nose twitches, he spots the chicken skewer, and points a trembling finger at it. Our boy looks at the man's desperate face and sees a reflection of his own past self, and without hesitation hands it over. Do-hyung devours the entire thing in a single aggressive gulp. A loud, satisfied burp follows. Our boy stares at the empty stick, devastated that he did not even get one bite. Do-hyung sits up with a smirk, unzips a black duffel bag, and reveals stacks upon stacks of 50,000 won bills as a thank you. Taegyu and Hyzendage go completely speechless. Then a motorcycle blurs past and two thieves grab the entire bag and speed away through the crowd. Hyzendage reaches for her phone to call the police, and when she looks up, both our boy and Do-hyung have already vanished from the spot. Boy and Do-hyung are already in a full sprint after the bike. The thieves look back and laugh mockingly, asking if these idiots really think they can catch a motorcycle on foot. Our boy tells Taizikoi to stay back, and Taizikoi immediately understands he needs privacy to use his real powers. He grabs Do-hyung's shirt, pretending to be exhausted, and accidentally rips the entire seat of his pants clean off, revealing his freshly baked buns. Do-hyung snaps at him, but Taizikoi shrugs while our boy sprints away alone. Inside his chest, the resurrection heart pulses with an intense red glow, fueling his inhuman speed as he becomes a blur, leaving afterimages on the pavement. One of the thieves glances back through his visor and goes completely pale because a student on foot is genuinely gaining on their speeding bike. The thieves swerve frantically around a corner, and our boy matches it perfectly. The distance is not widening at all. Spotting a construction site ahead, one thief smashes a scaffolding support, and a massive stack of cinder blocks comes crashing down on our boy, completely burying him under dust and debris. The thieves throw up a middle finger and speed away. A pained groan comes from beneath the wreckage as our boy slowly pushes himself out, vision swimming, still entirely focused on catching the thieves. Pedestrians stare in horror at the student emerging from what should have been a fatal accident. Meanwhile, the thieves pull into an abandoned warehouse and relax, confident they finally lost him. Then Do-hyung steps directly into their path. He delivers a massive punch that stops the motorcycle dead, sending the thieves tumbling violently across the concrete. He lowers his sunglasses to reveal a face cracking and hardening into gray jagged stone and warns them calmly that running is useless because he can sense their every move as long as they are touching the ground. More thieves arrive on bikes and encircle him. Do-hyung drops into a low crouch, places one palm against the ground, slams it down, causing a visible shockwave to spread across the floor, and enormous pillars of stone erupt with explosive force, shattering the entire structure, as he declares he will bury their whole hideout. Do-hyung receives tracking data in her corporate office, confirming a target connected to a construction company. She taps the photo and decides her intuition tells her this is exactly the person they need. Our boy slams his hands onto the desk, completely unable to believe they actually found one of his friends from the lab. Hyzen tells him to settle down because nothing is confirmed yet. She slides a thick folder across the desk with investigative reports and a photograph of a man sitting in what looks like an interrogation room. Our boy grips the photo and immediately recognizes the face. He jumps up, pointing at the image, and shouts that this is the same guy who ate his entire chicken skewer the other day. Hyzen stares at him. She gives him the name Kang Dong-yuk and watches his reaction. The name means nothing to him, but then he flips to a photo taken during a warehouse brawl showing the man's arm cracking and turning into heavy gray stone. That ability is unmistakable. Our boy shouts the real name, Kang Dong-yuk, completely certain that power belongs to one person. Hyzen nods and confirms that the man's ability is called the Heart of Stone. The grim reality follows. Do-hyung is now a multi-billion-dollar construction firm CEO working directly for the lab that tortured both of them. Just like Chaiwon, our boy's jaw tightens. Hyzen asks flat out if he is willing to get close to the target and find out exactly what is going on. Our boy slams his hand on the desk and accepts without hesitating. The scene shifts to Hodin Construction, a massive bustling site filled with cranes and excavators. This is Do-hyung's company. Our boy stands in dark work clothes and a white safety helmet with his goal clear in his head. Hyzen warned him that the friends he once knew might not be the same people anymore, and that Do-hyung is more deeply involved with the lab than any previous target. The plan is to use Do-hyung to drag the lab's puppet masters out into the light. Taegu trudges behind him, absolutely dying after only a few minutes of actual physical labor, insisting this is completely fine for a guy like him while his face turns bright red under his hard hat. To Taegu, this is a full-on spy mission. To the rest of the construction site, he looks like he is about to pass out. Beyond, before they can even begin looking for Do-hyung, a massive gruff worker towers over them, demanding to know what two punks are doing on his job site. The foreman gives them a simple ultimatum: move the entire mountain of cement bags within 1 hour or go home. Without a word, our boy stacks 8 bags of cement on his shoulders and tells Taegu they will just carry more per trip. Taegu's jaw drops, screaming that 8 bags is beyond what any human should lift. Our boy starts walking like it is nothing. The veteran workers turn around and cannot believe what they are seeing. Our boy is moving at an incredible pace with 160 kilograms on his back. The foreman yells at him for running, and our boy shouts back that he is just speed walking as his legs blur across the yard. The entire wall of cement bags is done in record time. The veteran worker points to another pile on the other side, looking completely shell-shocked. Our boy is already on his way back. Soon the second pile is finished too, and Taegu collapses on the ground gasping while our boy stands tall, asking what else they can help with. Up above, the crew is working on high-voltage electrical lines when a massive reel of cable starts unspooling uncontrollably. A live wire snaps and whips down from the upper level, crackling with blue electrical energy. The electrified line heads straight for a worker named Mr. Song, who looks up in absolute terror, frozen in place. Our boy leaps forward and grabs the live wire with both hands. A massive surge of blue electricity arcs through his body in a blinding flash, his skeleton visible through his skin as the voltage rips through everything. A nearby worker slams the emergency lever down and the power cuts instantly. Our boy collapses to the ground, smoke curling off his blackened shirt, then looks up laughing and insists it was just a close call. The veteran workers stand over him in pure admiration. One of them jokes he looks like he could wrestle a cow into the ground without breaking a sweat. Taezu whispers that since the old guys have accepted them, it is the perfect time to start digging for information. Our boy warns him to ask indirectly. Taezu steps up and asks the workers if there is a place on the site where people around their age tend to gather. The foreman gestures to his crew and announces that they are the people around Taezu's age, meaning men in their early 40s. The older men burst out laughing, assuming Taegu is at least in his early 30s. Our boy clamps his hand over Taegu's mouth the second his friend tries to scream that he is only 17, then laughs along with the veterans to keep things flowing. One of the workers mentions that Hodin Construction employs all the young folks. Our boy asks where to find them, and the worker warns that Hyzen is on a completely different level. Serious money but brutal work and a crew full of dangerous characters. Before he can say more, he points toward a different section of the yard and says, "Speak of the devil," because a vehicle is approaching. Below, a sleek white van rolls up completely out of place among the muddy trucks and heavy machinery. A foot in a pristine designer sneaker steps out onto the dusty ground. A whole squad of young men descends from the van draped in designer labels, walking with a wealthy aura that's screaming Gucci and Louis Vuitton. The leader steps forward with a sharp bun and sunglasses, leans against the van looking down at the rookies, then pulls his sunglasses down to reveal sharp calculating eyes. He points at our Sigma with a smug grin and asks if he is the same chicken skewer kid he ran into recently. A flashback showing the two of them years ago in a clinical setting, both in hospital gowns, both test subjects in the same horrific experiments. Our boy does not back down and addresses the man directly by his name, Kang Do-hyung. He confirms they have met and it has been over 10 years. The two former brothers are finally face to face again. Do-hyung confirms they have met and calls it a coincidence. Our boy tells him straight that it is not a coincidence at all. He came here specifically because he knew Do-hyung worked here. Do-hyung goes quiet for a second, genuinely caught off guard, and our boy thinks straight to the point. He is joining the company starting now. Whether Do-hyung is working with the lab willingly or being blackmailed does not matter. Just like the old days, they are going to be friends again. And whatever connection exists between Do-hyung and the lab, our boy is going to sever it completely. A flashback surfaces of a young skeletal Geo in the lab learning efficiency tips from a young Do-hyung. Back in the present, Do-hyung takes off his sunglasses and laughs once. They sit in the office and Do-hyung tells our boy plainly to go home. Our boy does not move. Do-hyung raises an eyebrow, but our boy wants to show him that he needs him. Do-hyung's entire crew is ready to physically throw this guy out, and our boy is sitting there like he already won. Without warning, our boy starts rearranging everything in the office. Coffee cup, documents, pen holder, then he grabs a massive metal cabinet that normally takes multiple men to move and drags it across the room single-handedly while the crew completely loses their minds, screaming at him to stop touching things. Do-hyung watches in silence. Our boy sets the cabinet down and says simply, "All done." Most efficient flow of movement. Do-hyung is right-handed, so the cup goes on the right. Documents organized by date so nothing gets lost. The cabinet was covering the window that lets a CEO see the entire construction site below. No report needed to know an accident happened. He just needed to look out the window. The only reason accidents keep happening is that the people in charge cannot grasp the situation on site. Do-hyung goes completely silent. Then he bursts out laughing and admits our boy just thoroughly exposed something even he managed to overlook. Hearing this, our boy thinks he taught him all of it. He gets another flashback where young Do-hyung patiently explains efficiency to a wide-eyed skeletal Geo who sparkled at the concept like someone handed him a revelation. Being efficient sounds amazing, and he wants to learn it too. Do-hyung looks slightly embarrassed and said he would teach him a bit. Do-hyung, our boy, officially starts as an intern that day. Do-hyung grabs him by the shoulder, absolutely losing his mind that our boy just won over the CEO all by himself. Our boy says quietly to himself that now he just needs to uncover what Do-hyung is actually doing with the lab. The crew Do-hyung left them does not look remotely happy about any of this. Arrogant little brat is the nicest thing written on their faces right now. 1 hour later, our boy is hauling heavy pipes across the yard again, and a site supervisor storms over screaming that everything is laid in the wrong direction and needs to be flipped completely within 1 hour. Another hour later, they finish and a different supervisor immediately storms over screaming about who laid the drainage pipe before leveling the slope first. He gets contradictory orders from every direction with zero communication between supervisors. This is a coordinated bullying campaign and everyone in the yard knows it. Targu is about to blast. He tells our boy he urgently needs the restroom and bolts in the direction the supervisors went. That is absolutely not why he is going. He sneaks up to a door and hears the supervisors laughing about the new punks falling for everything, agreeing to keep messing with them until they quit and blame every mistake on the new guys so none of it sticks. Taigu's eyes light up like a man who has made a life-altering decision. He storms back out, grabs a metal pipe, kicks down the door, and charges in screaming. The supervisor spins around and asks what is wrong with him. Taigu tells him he definitely noticed everything and asks what he plans to do about it. The supervisor desperately wants to throw hands but holds himself back because he cannot just beat up a kid. The site manager rushes over and pulls them apart, rubbing in that at least our boy has value and asking what exactly Taigu contributes. Taigu goes red. The manager then suggests they settle this with arm wrestling. If Taigu wins, they acknowledge both of them and back off completely. Taigu has never lost an arm wrestling match in his entire school career and grins immediately at the manager's smug face. The moment it starts, the manager slams down with everything he has and Taigu's capillaries burst immediately, his hand turning purple. If they had actually gotten into a real fight, he would have been completely done for. The manager laughs and reveals the catch. Taigu lost, so both of them quit and got out. Taigu screams, asking when he ever agreed to that. The manager shrugs, obviously because Taiyao walked straight into a trap and the rage was overwhelming. The manager casually suggests our boy try arm wrestling next to understand the situation better. Our boy, who has just arrived, accepts the challenge and says the rules for playing with him are totally different. He sits down across from the manager, completely calm. The manager thinks to himself he is going to turn this hand into a cripple in 1 second. Their hands lock and our boy barely moves and a horrible cracking sound echoes through the room. The manager screams that his arm is broken. Our boy tells him to get back into position because it is not over yet. The manager is already screaming. 2 of his crew charge at our boy and get put on the ground with clean, efficient strikes before they can process what happened. A third swings, and more pile in with weapons. After getting beaten, all of them realize that he is no ordinary man, so they decide to gang up on him. But just then, Do Hyung's voice cuts through the entire room telling them to stop. Everyone immediately turns pale. Do Hyung walks in, punches the manager on the spot, then looks at our boy and tells him he went too far and broke arm and nose of 2 of employees. Our boy says it is the same for his friend. Taegyu's hand is so swollen he cannot even clench it, and they should be repaid equally so these people can never mess with them again. Do Hyung stares at him and tells him he let him off easy, asking if he actually wants to get hit. Our boy tells him straight up that he is speaking because nothing changes if they stay quiet. Either way, this horrible experiment the lab is running just keeps going. He can endure whatever happens to him. Then in a flash of his skeleton form, our boy says the one thing that cuts through everything, but he can never endure what happens to his friend. Do Hyung goes completely still. He mutters that this bastard reminds him of the past. Do Hyung immediately panics, thinking they are getting fired. Do Hyung looks at them both and asks who said anything about firing them. The guy whose arm our boy broke will be in the hospital for a while. He needs someone to cover the work those useless crew members were doing. The remaining staff jump in immediately to volunteer. Do Hyung tells them to shut up in a single word. He is holding back a lot right now. Our boy asks quietly what kind of job it is. Do Hyung tells him he does not need to know, but he should be here at 5 in the morning. He will personally train him, and then he walks away. Next day, 5 in the morning. Our boy is standing alone in the dark cold, wondering if being called this early means the job is directly connected to the lab. Do Hyung appears and tells him to follow closely because they are going quite deep. They step into an old freight elevator that descends so far underground the bottom is not even visible. Do Hyung asks if he is nervous. Our boy admits a little. Do Hyung laughs once and points out that the same guy who stood in front of the CEO saying everything he wanted yesterday is chickening out now. Then his voice goes and he warns him to not show any sudden moves down here. If he causes a commotion, Do Hyung will kill him. The elevator stops and our boy steps out and freezes. The home under the construction site there is a tunnel with absolutely no end in sight. Do Hyung explains that everything here is company confidential. The job is simple, and points to rows of large sealed drums telling our boy to move all of them to their designated spots. He has to move everything by today, and he will be paid well. Our boy stands alone in the tunnel and thinks it is genuinely good to see Do Hyung again after all this time. He almost revealed his identity back there. He looks at the drums. They are sealed in a way that cannot be opened under normal circumstances. He looks at his hands and thinks that he can force it. He pries one open with raw strength and the smell hits him before he can even process what he is looking at. He plunges his hand directly into the green liquid to identify it through absorption, and the flesh immediately warps and tears as the substance rips through it. Bro damn near has a stroke from the smell alone. This is the poison the lab experimented on his body with. He decides immediately to contact Hyen. This is solid evidence directly connected to the lab. The city evil Adley does not know is that Do Hyung has been watching every second of this on a camera feed from above. He sits in the dark completely unsurprised because he knows Ju is a heart variant. The fact that he opened the drum to check means he is either connected to the police or to some other group targeting the lab's chemicals. Do Hyung stares at the screen for a moment longer and says he will finish it himself. Do Hyung runs through everything in his head. This kid approached him already knowing exactly who he was, kept pushing exactly the right buttons, and created reasons to get brought deeper into the operation with every single move carefully calculated. He has been chipping away at Do Hyung little by little and infiltrated this place completely on purpose. Do Hyung does not know his exact goals yet, but he picked the wrong target because now he is dealing with Do Hyung. Do Hyung does almost dawn when our boy is standing in the deep underground surrounded by a group of uniformed men. His voice completely calm as he tells them he came here knowing everything from the beginning. One of them screams that they got it all on camera, calls him a freak, and orders everyone to grab him at once. They rush him from every direction. One of the men screams that his ability is regeneration and swings a bat specifically built to shatter bones, calling him third-rate variant trash. The bat connects and our boy gets sent flying, but Do Hyung watching from above notices he dodged just enough to reduce the impact while still clearly holding back. He orders everyone to use their ability and rush him simultaneously. They pile on from every direction, grab his limbs, and one of them pulls out blades and cuts straight through his tendons so he cannot use his strength. Our boy screams in pure agony. The man stares at him because they stabbed him dozens of times and his face is not changing expression. Something is deeply wrong. Then the wounds start closing in real time, and this is simply not human. Do Hyung watches the screen with his eyes going wide, because our boy is absorbing the blood and healing faster than his body is being torn apart. Complete regeneration at that level is extremely rare, and the more blood he absorbs, the stronger he gets, like watching a runaway freight train with no brakes. What kind of heart does this guy actually have? Our boy tears through the rest of them at a speed they cannot track, rips the floor tiles up in one go and uses them to clear the room. Bodies hitting the ground one after another while he stays completely composed in the middle of all of it. Do Hyung steps out of the shadows with his face half transformed into stone and his hand a solid gray rock, telling our boy simply that he has faced more variants than he can count but has never seen regeneration like this. His regeneration alone puts him at the top. Then Do Hyung says one word slowly: regeneration. There is one person who comes to mind, but compared to this, that person's regeneration was nothing special and that person was not this strong. More importantly, that person died in an explosion. Our boy stays completely silent, and the silence answers it for Do-hyung after all. Do-hyung moves and our boy takes a hit hard enough to crack the ground beneath him, telling himself internally that it is still too early to reveal who he is, and he has to keep suspecting Kang Do-hyung until the very end. Do-hyung then drives a stone fist into the wall right next to his head, demanding to know who sent him. Our boy does not answer, and Do-hyung stares at him, saying not just the wall, but his tongue is dead set on staying quiet too. So then die. The strike connects, and our man goes flying in an arc of blood before crashing hard into the ground. The resurrection heart pulses, and our boy pulls himself back upright as the damage reverses in real time. Do-hyung stares in disbelief because he regenerates. Even if he blows his head clean off, he regenerates. Do-hyung smirks and tells our boy that the attack is not bad, but human bones and flesh can never pierce his rock-hard skin, so all he will do is shatter his own hand. Even as the words leave his mouth, his broken arm is already regenerating in real time, with the cracks sealing over one by one. Yet Kim Ji-ho's face refuses to leave his mind, because in the lab it only took a few hours to regrow one arm. But now Ji-ho's image keeps flashing through his thoughts. This guy can regenerate even if his head gets blown off, and someone with ultimate recovery like this should not be confused with that kid. Whoever he is, he clearly belongs to the lab. And Do-hyung's goal is simple, as he aims to extract every piece of information about the lab. He does not care if it is the police, a rival organization, or the government itself, because he will let no one lay a finger on it. He launches another crushing attack, and our boy takes the blow head-on before he gets slammed hard across the ground. Do-hyung sneers that it is useless, and he should just give up, since once handed over to the lab, they will identify him quickly enough. He grabs our boy and growls that he has been supplying the lab too, so he should not even dream of getting away with this. Our boy stares straight up at him and repeats the word too. When Do-hyung demands to know what he means, our boy answers with action instead, as he strikes Do-hyung across the face with enough force to snap his head back, then delivers a second blow that sends him skidding across the ground with a trail of blood following behind. Stunned, Do-hyung looks up as our boy stands over him and declares that he is making him reflect on the sins he has committed. Do-hyung asks what sins those are. Our boy replies that reflecting would not matter anyway, since Do-hyung is about to sit on billions. Do-hyung flatly states he will sell him for the highest possible price, which means he needs to beat some sense into him right now. Our boy is already absorbing more blood from the ground and pulling in a massive amount. Watching this, Do-hyung thinks he is actually trying to boost his attack power, but he dismisses it as idiotic, because human bones can never shatter his rock, and this is a pathetic attempt. He can strike 100 times or even 1,000 times, and the only thing that will break will be his own arm. Do-hyung for avoid hits him anyway, and something cracks. Do-hyung freezes because the strikes are actually breaking through. Our boy tells him not to worry and that he can strike 1,000 times if needed. Do-hyung screams and charges back in with his own body crumbling, as he realizes this is exactly why our boy came straight at him head-on to analyze his weaknesses. Once a crack appears in his rock skin, it spreads relentlessly. Do-hyung cannot keep up with the speed because cracks race across his body faster than he can reinforce them. This guy is completely insane, and he wonders if he even feels pain. Do-hyung admits he severely underestimated him and that trying to simply capture him was far too naive, so he can no longer hold back. Between strikes, he notices our boy doing something strange as he eats rocks off the ground. Do-hyung glances at the shattered remains of his own stone formation and makes a split-second decision as he shouts for everyone around them to get out if they want to live. In a fraction of a second, he calculates silicon dioxide, clay minerals, moisture content, density, and ground vibration, then summons the hardest and most massive rock available. The ground shakes violently as an enormous formation erupts from beneath the floor. Our boy looks up and instantly understands that if it hits him, there will be nothing left. So he sprints away just as the colossal rock crashes down behind him, with the shockwave tearing through the entire area. Do-hyung stands breathing hard and coughing blood onto the ground, thinking that if he had known earlier, he would have charged a fortune for this job because he had not been able to hold back. Then he stops because our boy survived, and he wonders if he is regenerating. What remains is barely recognizable, yet something moves in the wreckage. Do-hyung stares and whispers no, as he thinks even this ability has its limits. And for a split second, he genuinely feared death, but this is better since there is still something left. Then he sees it, because in that completely destroyed state, our boy is still absorbing blood from the ground. It cannot be, because an immortal variant is something Do-hyung has never encountered in all his years facing heart mutants. This is not normal regeneration, as it denies death itself through resurrection. Our boy pulls himself up and swings. Do-hyung takes the hit and stumbles back, stunned while gasping, as he stares at the face before him and demands to know who the hell this person is. He watches flesh and muscle rebuild over bone in real time, and something clicks as the skeleton Jew had not died back then. Is it really him? The face finishes forming. Do-hyung breathes the name out loud, with the realization knocking the air from his lungs. He asks why he hid his identity and what his reason for joining had been. His eyes widen as our boy focuses power again, because he realizes this crazy bastard is going for the kill with everything he has. Then a fist slams into Do-hyung's face from the side. Do-hyung's voice screams and asks if he's seriously trying to kill his friend. Do-hyung spits blood and tells the newcomer to stop because he knows who it is now. Do-hyung brings our boy to the office and sits across from him while still trying to reconcile the person before him with the Kim Jil he remembers. This is not the boy he once knew because he is different, not in personality, not in appearance, and not in the complete regeneration that has reached far beyond anything anticipated. Jil's heart is fundamentally different from what he thought, but he can figure that out later since the current situation is nobody's fault but his own. Kim Jil is no longer a boy, and thinking of him that way will put Do-hyung at a massive disadvantage. Kim Jil. He tells our boy that just as much as Jil knows him, he knows Jil inside and out. He had been genuinely surprised to see him because he truly believed he was dead. Before they talk further, he asks for his hand. When our boy asks why, Do-hyung says he got scraped up earlier and knows exactly why he is asking. Noting that our boy looks like he has a lot on his mind, Do-hyung asks if it is because of Lee Chai-won. Jae admits it is and asks hypothetically what he should do if a situation like Chai-won's happens again. Do-hyung answers with 2 words as he says, "You fight." The thought of fighting him again feels absurd after searching for 10 years and finally reuniting, but Do-hyung pushes it aside and asks what Kim Jae actually wants. Our boy says he wants to save his friends and sever their connection with the lab because his reason for joining the company had been to find out how Do-hyung is connected to the lab and get information out of him. Do-hyung warns him not to fool himself about the kind of people they are dealing with, since those associated with the lab have been forced into terrible positions and are already doing unimaginable things to survive. Emotional pleas will not work because they will use him and discard him the moment their interests diverge, just like with Lee Chai-won. His friends are the very people the lab could drive to their death, so he needs a long-term plan and has to stop thinking of them purely as friends if he truly wants to save them, because he needs to stand above them. When our boy asks how Do-hyung tells him to absorb his blood, as our Chad takes his hand, Do-hyung thanks him and says it is all done. He warns our man not to lie to him from now on because his heart rate is 80 beats per minute, and he can hear the heartbeat crystal clear just from absorbing the blood. Our boy is stunned that he can read heartbeats this way. Do-hyung explains that if he can read an opponent's intentions through conversation while holding the lead on their pulse, he holds the advantage from the start. Our boy asks straight up why Do-hyung is working with the lab, which is the organization that tortured both of them for 10 years. Do-hyung stares at him and says he will try to catch any lie in his heartbeat before asking what his motive even is. Our boy declares he is going to take down the lab. Do-hyung coughs in surprise and presses how deeply he is involved. Juho plans to do this alone despite the lab's power and the fact that all their friends are tied to it because he is going to destroy the lab and pull every single friend out. Duyo can count himself out if he wants because he does not need anyone unless they choose to come. Our boy slides a folder across the table containing the files he secretly gathered with paths of heart variants with code numbers, lists of people who vanished, factory records of permitted experiments, and reports claiming they are all dead. Do-hyung realizes he has far too much inside intel on the lab because compiling all this data makes no sense if he truly does not want to help. The moment he hears the words "take down the lab," it is as if Do-hae has been waiting for someone to finally say it out loud because he wants to take them down too. To-chain suddenly erupt from the floor and walls as they wrap around Do-hae from every direction. His heartbeat has given him away completely. He laughs and admits it because yes, he wants to take down the lab, but it is impossible with a suicide mission since the lab is much bigger than our boy thinks, with tentacles reaching into multinational corporations, governments, and the underworld. Their ridiculous influence is built on the sacrifices of their friends as they use heart variants as they please and run endless experiments. Knowing all this, he is still planning to hit them. Our boy says he will rescue the friends still trapped so they can no longer be used no matter how massive the lab is. However, he needs Do-hyung's help because he is not alone. He asks if he knows the name Song Hye-gep. Do-hyung recognizes her immediately as the Special Mutant Task Force leader, who is the one even the lab avoids contacting and the strongest heart variant in history. He is shocked that such a name is coming from Jio's mouth, and asks if she is the one backing him. When our boy confirms it, Do-hyung realizes that with Song Hye's support and Jio doing the persuading, since Jio has always been the one everyone trusted, they might actually convince the others. It is completely insane, but when our boy tells him that if he is not sure of himself, then he should believe in him instead. Do-hyung lets out a long breath. He reaches across the table and says screw it. As they do this, they shake hands. Elsewhere in a dark room, a woman hangs chained to the ceiling by her wrists as subject Duro 032, Imnarin, who is the regeneration subject the lab is using to replace him. A voice tells her no one is coming to save her. The scene shifts to Hyeon sitting across from Do-hyung with a file open in front of her, as she calmly lists his real name Kang Do-hyung as test subject 0042 with the Heart of Rock, who is currently CEO of Holden Construction, that specializes in foundation and underground work, all of it to support the lab. Do-hyung acknowledges that she knows a lot. Hyeon says she has been investigating him from the start and that he has been on their suspects list for a while because they knew he was using a fake identity and figured he was from the police just like Jisho. She asks if it is okay for a cop to use a fake identity in an interrogation. When Do-hyung tells her she is crossing the line, she teases that he is pretty cute like a genuine workaholic. She then switches tone entirely and says his heart is pounding so hard she does not even need her ability to hear it, as she asks if he is really that scared. Do-hyung admits he is absolutely terrified because she is the special mutant task force leader, who is the woman even the lab is wary of, and it genuinely feels like she is reading his mind. Do-hyung reminds him that he is planning to attack the lab too, and since she and Juo are after the same enemy, he should not think badly of her. Do-hyung counters that it is not exactly easy to trust the police either, because what stops her from using him and throwing him out afterward? She replies that she is actually a pretty warm person and will not do that. And when negotiations stall, she bluntly tells him to go to the same place as Lee Cha-won, because she locked him up last time when trying to clean his record. Do-hyung stares at the ceiling, realizing the woman he fears is literally threatening to jail him. He begs her to let him finish, as he insists he has been planning to come here himself anyway. Hainan agrees that helping the lab is a serious crime as part of a terrorist organization, but if he is willing to cooperate within certain limits, she will overlook what he has done so far because she also wants to destroy the lab. She will help him. Do-hyung immediately gives the most urgent intel because one of their friends can be saved right now, and her powers are extremely useful, as in Na-rin. Our boy confirms he knows her because she has been super energetic and really warm. Do-hyung stares at him in disbelief and says Na-rin is freaking gloomy. A memory surfaces of a skeletal Na-rin bursting out in the lab as she demands our boy stop sitting alone and come play. He had been embarrassed because his skin is still regenerating and looks gross, but she grabbed his arm and said she loves it because it makes her feel good watching it heal. Our Pookie skeleton stared at her completely baffled. Do-hyung is stunned by the story, but agrees it works out perfectly because since she has been close with everyone, getting her out will let them reach even more friends. Do-hyung has gathered the key information, so they will block off the route, ambush the transport trucks, wipe out the lab's forces, and rescue Na-rin. Do-hyung asks about his own protection in case the lab notices his move. Ho-choo-in assures him the road will be fully locked down with comms jammed and police ready to block reinforcements. As long as he keeps the lab from finding out, there will be no problems. They wait in position, and while holding Juyo, Do-hyung talks quietly. Do-hyung recalls that Na-rin once tried to push him off a roof. Our boy points out they jumped off together. Do-hyung concedes the point. A lot has changed over the years. He genuinely thought Jui was dead, and he admits he did not know he would recover to this extent either, but he is really glad Do-hyung is safe. The sound of friends being dragged away still haunts him, and just hearing the name the lab makes his heart react first. He tells Do-hyung he is scared too, but he lost someone right in front of his eyes, and he is sick and tired of running, so now it is their turn to pay because this time he is going to become the lab's nightmare. The convoy passes and they block the road. The blockade is complete, signal jammers activate, and from that moment all comms are cut. Everything now follows their own judgment. Something massive erupts from the ground ahead of the convoy as enormous stone formations tear through the road and force the vehicles to grind to a halt. The lab guards scream to secure the test subject compartment and not let anyone open it. Our boy tells them there is no need because he can open the door right here. He folded the truck like a lawn chair at a barbecue and pulled himself up into the vehicle as a voice inside screams that there are 2 heart variants and orders everyone to take them both down. The manager is already screaming the interior and goes completely still because he has finally found her. He checks his phone and says, "Let us end this in 5 minutes." The lab squad spots 2 hostile targets and immediately realizes that both are heart variants. Their senior orders them to engage and hold them by force. Our boy looks at the wall of soldiers closing in from every angle and casually tells Do-hyung to wrap this whole thing up in 5 minutes, right as the squad locks onto him through their scopes and shifts every gun in his direction. Do-hyung puts up a wall of solid rock to block the first round of bullets, and the squad immediately calls him out over comms as a confirmed rock-type variant. They decide to switch focus to our boy until they figure out what he can do. Every gun in the squad turns his way, and he dodges through the bullets at full speed, so the squad starts calling him a speed type and tells everyone to dump all their firepower on him. Quite a one bullet hits him clean as he ducks under Do-hyung's wall. While the squad tries to use the same cover, our boy turns the hit into a flying kick that lands right on a soldier's jaw. They keep counting the damage out loud. A hit to the arm, a shot to the head, the stomach, the legs, bullets, basically everywhere on him. For 1 second, it actually looks like he is done. Then his wounds just start closing up right in front of them. The soldiers stare at their own guns, completely losing their brain cells, saying their firing is doing nothing because the wounds keep healing. Someone finally realizes that he is a regeneration type. From here, the fight turns into chaos. Our boy and Do-hyung fight side by side against the whole squad, fists and blades everywhere, and Command immediately bumps both of them up to high risk before clearing stun guns for use. A massive jolt of electricity hits our boy and he just takes it head-on, shouting that he is holding the line right here. His skeleton lights up blue under his skin as thousands of volts rip through him like he is a human nightlight. Do-hyung watches in horror as even more stun gear comes in, and this time it's fixed straight onto the transport vehicles. He tries calling for a retreat, saying he will cover everyone, but our boy is already shouting out the real plan. He tells Na-rin to grab the wounded and head for the emergency stairs, then advises Jae-won to fall back and pick up anyone who drops. He wants to stay right here and block the line of sight while everyone pulls out. Do-hyung asks if he is seriously staying behind against this many enemies, and our boy just shrugs and says their bullets cannot get through his steel balls anyway. Then the squad brings out electric suppression gear and points it straight at the weak spots in his hardened skin. Duhaeng's rock walls start crumbling as the current rips through every crack. His body remembers this exact feeling. The second electricity like this hits him, his powers shut off completely, and he is just as helpless as he used to be. One soldier mocks him for getting lost in his feelings mid-fight and tells the team to stop being scared and just blow up the power source, so the gear becomes useless junk. Duhaeng makes a run for the generator and lands a solid hit, but the squad flanks him from the other side and pins him down with gunfire from every direction. He realizes too late that going for the equipment alone was a dumb move because it left him completely blind to the second team sneaking up behind him. He had one job to look his back, and he failed it badly. High-caliber rounds get cleared next, and they tear straight through the rock armor he wrapped around himself like it was made of cardboard. The scene shifts back to the street. Our boy catches the soldier before he hits the ground, then cranks his stored charge to the absolute max and dumps every volt he absorbed earlier straight back into the squad in one massive blast. The soldiers scream that this kid just took 50,000 volts at 50 milliamps and is still swinging like it is nothing. They cannot even process what they are seeing. Our boy stands there in the pouring rain like a sparking electric box and tells them flatly that what they are doing here is genuinely messed up. Nobody should be using gear like this on a person. One soldier asks where the hell they even came from and what they actually want. Our boy answers without any extra drama that he just came to grab a friend. The soldier stares at him as if he spoke Latin, then slowly realizes this kid is nowhere near a normal variant. They picked the worst possible enemy to mess with tonight. Just then, a hit from the two of them clears out the rest of the squad. The rain keeps falling on a street littered with knocked-out soldiers. Duhaeng suggests tying them up so nobody runs, but there is no time. This whole job needs to be done in 5 minutes. They already have Na-Rin and plenty of room to disappear. Then Duhaeng stops dead in his tracks. He turns toward the vehicle, and as they pull her out, something feels completely off. She is not actually in there. He admits he sensed it the second the attack started. Our boy grabs the closest soldier still conscious and asks where Na-Rin really is. The man stammers that he only knew about a girl scheduled for transport on this route, that they were told it would be Na-Rin, but the lab swapped the target at the last second. Our boy tells him to stop dancing around it and just spit it out. The man cracks and gives up the location of the temporary holding spot for variant transport. The scene shifts to a sterile lab room where a doctor checks the vitals of a girl strapped down. He confirms subject 0032 is stable and unconscious, notes her weak pupil response, and holds a small flame near her skin to test it. Nothing happens, so he turns his back for a second to write the results down. That is when she moves and a burst of red spines shoots violently out of her body. The doctor screams as they tear straight through him. Somehow she triggered her power even while she was knocked out. He stumbles backward and is completely shocked that her heart kept reacting on pure instinct. The second man steps into frame, watching the whole thing with curiosity instead of any real panic. He tells the bleeding doctor he already warned him not to relax because their hearts never stop reacting. The urge to defend themselves never turns off no matter how little pain they actually feel. Toshsenhei looks her over with that same bored expression, calling her the cactus heart and saying the speed of her spine regrowth is not bad. But that is not what really caught his attention. He grabs her by the jaw, tilts her face back, and his voice drops colder. What he really wants to dig into is her regeneration. The pale-haired man tells the doctor her regeneration is not on the level of his real test subject, but it is more than enough for what they need. He says it with the same flat curiosity he uses for everything, then tells her plainly not to die on him because the data is worthless if she is not alive to keep producing it. Just then, a researcher bursts in panicked and reveals that the transport team just got ambushed. Han stares for a second and wonders how they even found the route. He decides it does not matter right now and orders Team 2's transport postponed and everyone back to the lab. Meanwhile, our boy and Duhaeng are tearing through the facility's outer security like it is made of cardboard. Stone walls crumble around them as they push deeper inside. Song Haein confirms the holding facility location and that outside security has already been cleared. The rescue operation for Na-Rin is officially on. On the side, Han Kichul senses that 2 variants just broke in here without a single trace of fear. Meanwhile, the guard confirms Na-Rin is being moved by Team 2. Our boy and Duhaeng force him to tell the full schedule. The man stammers that he genuinely does not know anything about the actual mission and begs them to spare his life. Our boy scans the document and goes completely still when he sees that the person in charge is Han Kichul. Her alarms start blaring through every corridor as soldiers get into position. Our boy mutters that he cannot believe Han himself is running this lab now, considering he used to be a low-ranking researcher. Duhaeng admits he did not know Han had climbed that high either. They agree that splitting up makes more sense. Han's abilities are built around capturing and restraining people, so sticking together would only slow them down. Duhaeng volunteers immediately to go after Na-Rin. Our boy hesitates for a moment, which makes Duhaeng lose his mind for a second. He points out that Kang Duhaeng would attract way too much attention if he went in alone, while he had already accepted the risks the second they stepped inside. Since rescuing Na-Rin is the top priority, Duhaeng insists on playing decoy. He activates his ability and massive slabs of stone rise around him. He believes no one present can draw more attention than he can, so our boy should push forward without worrying. Sigma Duhaeyang advances through the facility by himself and gets spotted almost immediately. Soldiers surround him and open fire. A bullet hits him square in the head, but he does not even flinch. Instead, he calmly realizes the narrow hallway is actually the perfect battlefield for someone who controls rock. His enemies pick the worst possible place to fight him. He launches a devastating counterattack, crushing the soldiers with overwhelming force. The commander identifies him as a high-risk variant with rock-based abilities and calls for heavy firepower. A soldier raises a rocket launcher, but before he can fire, chains burst from the shadows and wrap tightly around him. Han Ki-chael arrives and stops the attack. Killing such a valuable test subject would be a waste. He identifies him as Subject 0072, capable of manipulating stone. Han stares at Duhaeyang with cold disappointment, recalling how he escaped 3 years ago only to be recaptured after once swearing loyalty to the lab before betraying it again. In Han's eyes, Duhaeyang is beyond redemption. The chains tighten around him, forcing visible agony. His rock-like skin vanishes as fear takes over. Han observes calmly that the defensive ability did not fail because of damage, but because Duhaeyang voluntarily deactivated it after succumbing to fear. Despite the crushing pressure, Duhaeyang regains his composure and makes it clear that nobody forced him into this. The decision was entirely his own. Han dismisses it, insisting he only followed the others because he feared being abandoned again. Chains keep whipping toward every escape route while stun weapons are prepared. Han explains that fear has always been Duhaeyang's greatest weakness, and that he only waits until it overwhelms him before striking at the most vulnerable moment. Pushed to his limit, Duhaeyang nearly collapses, but he leans against the damaged wall, looks at the cracks spreading across his own hand, and quietly admits a part of him still wants to run. Then he remembers he already chose that path once before, surviving by abandoning his friends and pretending not to see what was happening. He refuses to repeat the same mistake. He analyzes the wall's mineral composition and extends his control over the surrounding bricks. The entire wall explodes outward in a violent storm of bricks and rebar. The flying debris tears through the chains and finally sets him free. Compared to living in constant fear, those chains had always felt far more suffocating. He overcomes the fear and resolves that he will never run away again. Countless bricks gather around his arm and merge into an enormous stone fist. He swings it and folds every soldier in his path. Watching through the security monitors, Han is stunned as he realizes Duhaeyang gained control over the bricks by consuming them first. It lets him reshape the material exactly how he needs it for battle. Han calmly points out that although Duhaeyang turned the walls into deadly shrapnel, the attack failed to inflict any real damage on him. It was slow and predictable. Rather than focusing on the assault itself, Han recognizes it was only a distraction to buy someone else time. The real objective is the one who slipped away to rescue Im Na-rin. He had already deployed a large force to deal with that intruder. Despite Duhaeyang's desperate resistance, Han eventually lands another crushing blow that sends him crashing to the ground. At the same time, reports confirm that every soldier originally assigned to pursue our boy has already been in heaven. However, multiple reinforcement squads are rapidly closing in. Meanwhile, our boy finally reaches the detention area and finds Na-rin imprisoned inside a holding cell, unconscious and covered in bruises. He kneels beside her and carefully tries to wake her. Her eyes slowly open, but exhaustion and confusion keep her from recognizing him right away. Without wasting another second, he grabs the chains binding her and starts tearing through each metal link. Just then, Han Ki-chael enters the room. A satisfied smile spreads across his face as he realizes the situation has turned out even better than expected.